The surgeon's hands trembled as he lifted the corroded device from Daniel Brooks's abdomen. In 20 years of practice, Dr. Aaron Pierce had never seen anything like this. A banned medical implant, deliberately placed, slowly poisoning a man from the inside. "Who did this to you?" he whispered. Daniel, still groggy from anesthesia, didn't understand the question. He trusted his wife. She was a doctor. She would never... But the serial number on that rusted piece of metal told a different story. One of calculated cruelty that had been destroying him for 15 years. If you're watching from anywhere in the world, drop your city in the comments so I can see how far this story reaches. And if you want to know how deep this betrayal goes, hit that like button and stay until the very end. You won't believe what happens next. The emergency room at Riverside Medical Center smelled like disinfectant and fear. Daniel Brooks sat on the examination table, doubled over, his face pale and slick with sweat. The pain had started 3 days ago, a dull ache in his lower abdomen that he'd tried to ignore. By this morning, it felt like something was tearing him apart from the inside. "Mr. Brooks, I need you to lie back for me," Dr. Aaron Pierce said, his voice calm and professional. He was a seasoned emergency physician with salt and pepper hair and the kind of steady demeanor that came from years of seeing the worst humanity had to offer. "Let's figure out what's going on." Daniel complied, wincing as he stretched out on the table. His son, 12-year-old Marcus, sat in the corner of the room, his young face tight with worry. The boy had his father's dark eyes and the same stubborn set to his jaw. "Dad, maybe we should call Mom," Marcus suggested quietly. Daniel shook his head. "Your mother's in surgery all day. We'll handle this." That was a lie, and Daniel knew it. The truth was more complicated. Victoria, his wife of 15 years, had always insisted on managing his medical care personally. Anytime he felt sick, she'd examine him at home, prescribe something from her office, and send him on his way. "I'm a doctor, Daniel," she'd say with that patient smile. "Why waste money on appointments when I can take care of you?" But this morning, when the pain became unbearable, Victoria had already left for the hospital where she worked as a gynecologist. Daniel had been vomiting, could barely stand, and Marcus had been terrified. So for the first time in years, Daniel had come to the emergency room without telling his wife. Dr. Pierce pressed gently on Daniel's abdomen, watching his patient's face carefully. "Does this hurt?" "Yes," Daniel hissed through clenched teeth. "And here?" "Everything hurts." Dr. Pierce frowned. "How long have you been experiencing abdominal pain?" "Off and on for, I don't know, years maybe," Daniel admitted, "but never this bad." "Years?" Dr. Pierce's eyebrows rose. "And you haven't seen a doctor?" "My wife is a doctor. She said it was probably stress. I work construction, raise my son. She thought I was just exhausted." "I see." "Doctor." Pierce made a note on his tablet. "Mr. Brooks, I'd like to run some imaging. A CT scan, maybe an ultrasound. Something's not right here." 20 minutes later, Daniel lay on the CT scanner bed while the machine hummed around him. Marcus sat in the waiting area, texting his father every few minutes, even though they were only rooms apart. "You okay, Dad?" "Fine, buddy. Just routine stuff. Mom's gonna be mad we didn't tell her." Daniel stared at that message for a long moment before responding. "Let me handle your mother." The scan took 15 minutes. Dr. Pierce reviewed the images in the radiology suite, his expression growing darker with each passing second. He called in Dr. Sarah Chen, the head of radiology, and together they studied the monitor in silence. "That can't be right," Dr. Chen murmured, adjusting the image contrast. "Run it again." "I already did," Dr. Pierce replied. "Twice." "Then we need surgery. Now." Daniel was back in the examination room when Dr. Pierce returned, his face grave. Marcus looked up from his phone, sensing immediately that something had changed. "Mr. Brooks, I need to speak with you," Dr. Pierce said carefully. "Alone, if possible." "Whatever you need to say, you can say in front of Marcus," Daniel replied. "He's not a child." Dr. Pierce hesitated, then nodded. "The CT scan revealed a foreign object in your abdominal cavity. It appears to be some kind of medical device, but it's not something that should be there. It's positioned near your intestines and appears to be causing significant inflammation and tissue damage." Daniel blinked. "A medical device? What kind of device?" "That's what we need to determine. But Mr. Brooks, I'm recommending emergency surgery. Whatever this is, it needs to come out immediately. The inflammation is severe, and if we wait, you risk perforation, infection, sepsis. Wait, Daniel interrupted, his mind racing. How did something get inside me? I've never had surgery, not once in my life. Dr. Pierce and Marcus both stared at him. Never? Dr. Pierce pressed. No appendectomy? No hernia repair? Nothing? Nothing, Daniel confirmed. I've never even been hospitalized except when Marcus was born, and I was just there as a visitor. The room fell silent. Doctor. Pierce's frown deepened. Dad, Marcus said quietly, what about that time you stayed at Mom's clinic? Daniel turned to his son. What? Remember? I was like 5 or 6. You were really sick with something, and Mom said you needed to stay at her clinic for a few days. You came home with bandages. The memory surfaced slowly, like something rising from deep water. Daniel had forgotten about that. It was 7, maybe 8 years ago. He'd been suffering from severe abdominal pain, similar to what he felt now, actually, and Victoria had insisted he needed a minor procedure. She'd called it exploratory, routine, nothing to worry about. He'd trusted her completely. Mr. Brooks? Dr. Pierce prompted. Yes. There was something, years ago. My wife did a procedure, but she said it was just diagnostic, looking for the cause of some stomach issues. Did she tell you what she did? What she found? She said everything was fine, that the pain was probably from an ulcer and she'd treated it. I felt better after that, so I didn't question it. Dr. Pierce exchanged a look with the nurse in the room. Mr. Brooks, I need you to consent to surgery. We need to remove this object and determine what it is. Can you do that? Daniel's hands were shaking. Yes. Yes, do it. I'll have the surgical team prep immediately. This is urgent. The surgery took 3 hours. Marcus sat in the waiting room, alternating between his phone and the muted television mounted in the corner. He tried calling his mother 4 times, but each call went to voicemail. Finally, he sent a text. Dad's in surgery. Emergency. Please call. Victoria's response came 20 minutes later. What? Where are you? Why didn't you tell me? Riverside Medical. He was in a lot of pain. Dr. Pierce said he needed surgery right away. Who is Dr. Pierce? I don't know that name. Marcus, I'm your father's physician. You should have called me first. Marcus stared at the message, feeling a knot form in his stomach. Something about his mother's response felt off. Not concern for his father, but anger at being bypassed. Sorry, Mom. It happened really fast. I'm coming there now. Marcus didn't respond. He pocketed his phone and returned his attention to the waiting room entrance, watching for any sign of news about his father. In the operating room, Dr. Pierce worked carefully, his team silent and focused around him. The device was buried deep in the abdominal cavity, surrounded by inflamed tissue that had clearly been reacting to its presence for years. It took careful dissection to free it without damaging the surrounding organs. When Dr. Pierce finally held the object in his gloved hand, he felt his stomach turn. It was a contraceptive implant, the kind used for long-term birth control in women. But it was an old model, one that had been recalled and banned nearly a decade ago due to reports of severe adverse reactions, including migration from the insertion site, chronic inflammation, and heavy metal poisoning from the degrading materials. And it had been placed inside a man's body. Get this to pathology immediately, Dr. Pierce instructed the surgical nurse. And I want a full material analysis. I need to know exactly what this is made of and how long it's been in there. Doctor, the nurse said hesitantly, should we contact the authorities? Dr. Pierce looked down at Daniel's open abdomen, at the damaged tissue surrounding where the device had been embedded. Yes, he said quietly. Yes, we should. Daniel woke slowly, swimming up through layers of anesthesia-induced fog. The recovery room was bright and cold. A nurse stood nearby, monitoring his vitals. Mr. Brooks, can you hear me? Yes, Daniel croaked. His throat was raw from the breathing tube. The surgery went well. Dr. Pierce will be in to speak with you shortly. Marcus appeared at his bedside moments later, his young face tight with relief. Dad, thank God. Hey, buddy. Daniel managed a weak smile. I'm okay. Mom's here. Marcus said quietly. She's talking to the doctor now. Daniel's smile faded. Something in his son's tone set off alarm bells. What's wrong? I don't know. She seemed really angry when she got here. Not worried, angry. Before Daniel could respond, the curtain around his bed was pulled back. Victoria Lane stood there in her white coat, her blonde hair pulled back in a neat bun, her expression carefully controlled. She was a beautiful woman, tall, poised, with the kind of confidence that came from years of authority. But right now her blue eyes were cold. Daniel, she said crisply, what were you thinking? Victoria T., you should have called me. I'm your wife. I'm a physician. Instead, you came here and let some stranger cut you open. Dr. Lane. Dr. Pierce appeared behind her, his voice firm. I need to speak with your husband privately. I'm his wife and his doctor, Victoria snapped. Anything you need to say, you can say in front of me. Actually, I can't. Dr. Pierce's expression was stone. Hospital policy. I need to speak with my patient alone. For a moment, Victoria looked like she might argue. Then she smoothed her expression into something more professional. Of course. Marcus, come with me. I want to stay with Dad, Marcus protested. Now, Marcus. The boy shot his father an apologetic look and followed his mother out. Doctor. Pierce waited until they were gone, then pulled the curtain closed and moved to Daniel's bedside. Mr. Brooks, what I'm about to tell you is going to be difficult to hear. Daniel's chest tightened. What did you find? Dr. Pierce pulled up a chair and sat down. The device we removed from your abdomen was a contraceptive implant. Specifically, it was a Norplant-type subdermal implant that was designed to be placed in a woman's arm for long-term birth control. This particular model was recalled in 2016 due to serious health complications. Daniel stared at him. I don't understand. Neither do I, Mr. Brooks. This device should never have been in your body. It serves no medical purpose for a male patient. Furthermore, its placement in your abdominal cavity rather than subdermally suggests it was implanted during surgery, which aligns with what you told me about the procedure your wife performed years ago. The words weren't making sense. Daniel's brain felt sluggish, still foggy from the anesthesia. Are you saying Victoria put that inside me? I'm saying that device didn't get there by accident. Someone with surgical training placed it in your abdomen. The question is why? There has to be an explanation. Maybe it was left behind by mistake during the exploratory procedure. Mr. Brooks. Dr. Pierce's voice was gentle but firm. These devices are designed for contraception. They release hormones. They don't accidentally end up in someone's abdominal cavity. And according to the pathology analysis, this one has been degrading for years, leaching materials into your system that have been causing chronic inflammation and likely contributing to your ongoing health problems. Daniel felt like the room was tilting. You're saying she did this on purpose? I'm saying you need to ask her why this device was in your body. I've contacted hospital administration and filed a mandatory report with the state medical board. Given the circumstances, there will be an investigation. An investigation into my wife. An investigation into how a banned medical device ended up inside a patient's body without their knowledge or consent. Dr. Pierce stood. Mr. Brooks, I strongly suggest you contact a lawyer, and perhaps you shouldn't discuss this with your wife until you've had legal counsel. After Dr. Pierce left, Daniel lay in the recovery bed, staring at the ceiling. His mind was racing, trying to make sense of what he'd just been told. Victoria was his wife, the mother of his child. She'd cared for him for 15 years, supported him, loved him, or so he'd believed. But there was something else. Something that had been nagging at the edges of his consciousness for months now. Small things that hadn't made sense at the time, but that he'd dismissed. Victoria's increasingly frequent overnight shifts at the hospital. The way she kept her phone locked and face down. The separate bank account she'd opened last year, claiming it was for professional expenses. The weekend conferences that seemed to happen more and more often. And then there was the conversation he'd accidentally overheard 3 weeks ago. Victoria on the phone in the garage, speaking in a soft voice he didn't recognize. I miss you too. I know it's hard. Just a little longer and then we can... She'd stopped abruptly when she realized Daniel was there, claiming it was a colleague discussing a difficult case. Daniel had believed her. He always believed her. The curtain opened again, and Victoria stepped through. She was alone this time. Marcus is getting coffee, she said. Daniel, what did that doctor tell you? Daniel studied his wife's face. She looked concerned now, her earlier anger replaced with something that might have been worry. But there was something else there too, something he couldn't quite identify. He said they found a contraceptive device inside me, Daniel said quietly. One that was banned years ago. Victoria's expression didn't change. That's absurd. He must be mistaken. He seemed pretty sure. He said it was placed during surgery, the surgery you did on me 7 years ago. Daniel, I would never... Victoria stopped, shaking her head. This is ridiculous. That doctor clearly doesn't know what he's talking about. I performed a simple diagnostic laparoscopy on you. There was no implantation of anything. Then how did it get there? I don't know. But I promise you, I will get to the bottom of this. I'm going to request a full review of that surgical report and the police are going to investigate, Daniel interrupted. Dr. Pierce filed a report. For just a moment, so brief Daniel almost missed it, something flashed across Victoria's face. Fear? Anger? It was gone before he could identify it. Well, let them investigate, Victoria said firmly. They'll find nothing because there's nothing to find. This is clearly a mistake or a mix-up of some kind. You're my husband, Daniel. I would never do anything to hurt you. She reached for his hand, but Daniel pulled away. I need to rest, he said. Victoria's jaw tightened. Of course, I'll check on you later. After she left, Daniel closed his eyes and tried to make his racing thoughts slow down. But all he could think about was that device, banned and degrading, hidden inside his body for years, and the person who had put it there. Daniel was released from the hospital 2 days later with a prescription for antibiotics and pain medication, along with strict instructions to follow up with a gastroenterologist for monitoring. The damage from the implant was significant. Chronic inflammation had scarred tissue throughout his abdominal cavity, and there were concerns about long-term complications. Victoria had visited once more during his hospital stay, her manner professional and distant. She'd reviewed his chart, consulted with Dr. Pierce, a conversation Daniel learned later had been tense and brief, and then departed with a promise to sort this mess out. Marcus drove his father home in Victoria's car. The boy had just gotten his learner's permit and drove with exaggerated care, his hands at 10 and 2, his eyes fixed on the road. You're doing great, Daniel assured him, watching his son's serious expression. Dad, Marcus said after a long silence, is Mom in trouble? Daniel considered his answer carefully. I don't know, buddy. We need to figure out what happened. But that doctor said she put something inside you, something that made you sick. We don't know that for sure yet. Marcus pulled into their driveway, a modest 2-story house in a quiet suburban neighborhood, and put the car in park. He turned to face his father. Dad, I'm not stupid. I know something's been wrong with Mom for a while now. She's never home anymore. She doesn't ask about school or come to my games. And when she is here, it's like she's thinking about something else all the time. Daniel felt his chest tighten. He'd tried so hard to shield Marcus from the growing distance between him and Victoria. Apparently, he hadn't succeeded. Relationships go through rough patches sometimes, Daniel said carefully. Your mother has a demanding job. So do you, but you still make time for me. Marcus's voice cracked slightly. If she did this to you, if she hurt you on purpose, why would she do that? I don't have answers yet, Marcus. But I promise you, we're going to find out the truth. Inside the house, Daniel settled onto the couch while Marcus fussed over him, bringing pillows and water and the television remote. The boy had inherited Victoria's caretaking instincts, but unlike his mother, his concern felt genuine and unforced. Victoria didn't come home that night. She sent a text around 8 p.m. saying she had to cover an emergency C-section and would stay at the hospital. Daniel stared at the message for a long time before setting his phone down. He couldn't shake the feeling that his wife was avoiding him, and given what Dr. Pierce had told him, he couldn't really blame her. Eat. The next morning, Daniel received a call from Detective Patricia Morrison of the county sheriff's office. She had a warm voice, but a no-nonsense manner that immediately put Daniel on edge. Mr. Brooks, I'm calling regarding the medical incident at Riverside Medical Center. Do you have time to speak with me? Yes, Daniel said, moving to the back porch where Marcus wouldn't overhear. What do you need to know? I've been reviewing the report filed by Dr. Pierce, as well as the pathology analysis of the device removed from your body. I need to ask you some questions about the surgical procedure performed on you approximately 7 years ago. For the next 30 minutes, Daniel recounted everything he remembered. The abdominal pain that had started suddenly, Victoria's insistence that he needed an exploratory procedure, the private clinic where she'd performed the surgery, not the hospital where she normally worked, the recovery period at home, and how the pain had eventually subsided. And your wife never explained exactly what she did during that procedure? Detective Morrison asked. She said she'd looked around, found some inflammation, treated it. She gave me antibiotics and said I'd be fine. Did you receive any documentation, surgical notes, discharge papers, anything? Daniel frowned, thinking back. No, she said it wasn't necessary since it was such a minor procedure. Mr. Brooks, even minor procedures require documentation, especially when anesthesia is involved. Detective Morrison paused. I'm going to need to speak with your wife. Is she available? She's at work. Mercy General Hospital. I'll contact her there. In the meantime, I need you to do something for me. Don't discuss this investigation with her. Don't let her know I'm reaching out. Can you do that? Daniel's hands were shaking. You think she did this intentionally? I think there are questions that need answers. And I think those answers are going to be easier to get if your wife doesn't have time to prepare her responses. After the call ended, Daniel sat on the porch for a long time, watching his neighbor's sprinklers create rainbows in the morning sun. 15 years of marriage. 15 years of trusting someone completely, believing they had his best interests at heart. And now a detective was investigating whether his wife had deliberately poisoned him. His phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. Can you pick up Marcus from school? I have a late meeting. Daniel stared at the message. A late meeting, just like the dozens of late meetings she'd had over the past year. Late meetings, overnight shifts, weekend conferences. How many of them had been real? He texted back a simple acknowledgement, then called Marcus's school to let them know he'd be there. That afternoon, while Marcus was at basketball practice, Daniel did something he'd never done before. He went into Victoria's home office. The room was neat and organized, everything in its place. Medical journals lined one bookshelf. Her desk held a laptop, password protected, a stack of patient files, which Daniel didn't touch. He wasn't looking to violate anyone's privacy except possibly his wife's, and a small framed photo of the three of them from 5 years ago, all smiling at a beach somewhere. Daniel opened the desk drawers methodically. Pens, notepads, office supplies, nothing unusual. He moved to the filing cabinet in the corner. Medical records, tax documents, household files. He was about to close it when something caught his eye. A file folder labeled Summit Street Property. Daniel didn't recognize the address. He pulled out the folder and opened it. Inside were documents related to a rental property across town, a lease agreement signed by Victoria Lane, monthly payment receipts, and utility bills, gas, electric, water, for a 2-bedroom apartment. Daniel's heart was pounding as he pulled out his phone and typed the address into Google Maps. The apartment building was in a nice neighborhood about 20 minutes away. Why would Victoria be renting an apartment when they owned their home? He was still holding the folder when he heard the garage door opening. Victoria was home early. Daniel quickly shoved the folder back into the filing cabinet and closed it, his mind racing. He shouldn't be in here. He knew that. But he also knew he needed answers, and Victoria wasn't giving them to him. Daniel? Victoria's voice called from the kitchen. Are you home? He stepped out of the office and found her setting her purse on the counter. She looked tired, her makeup slightly smudged, her hair escaping from its usual neat bun. Hi, Daniel said. You're home early. The meeting got canceled. She studied him. What were you doing? Just walking around, still sore from the surgery. Victoria's eyes flicked past him to the office door, which he'd left slightly ajar. Her expression tightened almost imperceptibly. How are you feeling? She asked, her voice carefully neutral. Been better. The doctor said it'll take a few weeks to fully recover. I'm sure. Victoria moved to the refrigerator and pulled out a bottle of wine. We need to talk, Daniel. About what? About this investigation. I received a call from a detective today. She had some very offensive questions about the procedure I performed on you. What did you tell her? Victoria poured herself a glass of wine and took a long sip before answering. I told her the truth, that I performed a diagnostic laparoscopy to investigate your abdominal pain, that I found and treated some minor inflammation, and that I have no idea how that device ended up in your body. She didn't believe you. Of course she didn't believe me. Victoria's voice turned sharp, because that idiot doctor at Riverside has convinced everyone that I somehow intentionally implanted a contraceptive device in my husband's abdomen. It's absurd. Is it? The words were out before Daniel could stop them. Victoria froze. Excuse me? Is it absurd, Victoria? Because from where I'm standing, a lot of things are starting to make sense. The overnight shifts, the locked phone, the separate bank account. Daniel gestured toward the office. The apartment you're renting across town. The color drained from Victoria's face. You went through my files. What's at that apartment, Victoria? For a long moment, she didn't answer. She just stood there, wine glass in hand, her expression unreadable. Then she set the glass down very carefully. I think you should leave, she said quietly. This is my house. Is it? Check the deed, Daniel. I bought this house with my income. My name is on the mortgage. Daniel stared at his wife, seeing her clearly for perhaps the first time in years. The beautiful, successful doctor he'd married had always been in control of their finances, of their medical care, of their entire life together. And he'd let her, believing it was partnership when it was actually something else entirely. Why did you put that device inside me? Daniel asked quietly. I didn't. Then explain the apartment. I don't have to explain anything to you. Victoria picked up her purse. I'm going out. We'll discuss this when you're being rational. She was gone before Daniel could respond, the garage door closing behind her with a definitive thud. Daniel stood in the kitchen for a long time, his hands shaking. Then he pulled out his phone and called Detective Morrison. Detective, it's Daniel Brooks. I think I found something you should know about. Detective Morrison arrived at the house an hour later with a warrant to search Victoria's office. Marcus was still at practice, and Daniel was grateful his son didn't have to see police officers going through his mother's things. The apartment is interesting, Detective Morrison said, as her team carefully photographed and documented everything in the office. We'll check it out. But Mr. Brooks, I need to be honest with you. Even if your wife is living a double life, that doesn't prove she implanted that device intentionally. What would prove it? Surgical records. Documentation that shows what she actually did during that procedure. Video footage if the clinic had cameras. A confession. Detective Morrison pulled out her notepad. The clinic where she performed your surgery, it's closed now. Went out of business 3 years ago. We're trying to track down their medical records, but it's proving difficult. So she might get away with it. I didn't say that, but building a criminal case requires evidence, and right now what we have is circumstantial. Detective Morrison's expression softened. However, the medical board is very interested in this. Even if criminal charges don't stick, your wife will likely lose her license to practice medicine. The risk to patients is too great. After the police left with several boxes of documents, Daniel sat in the quiet house and tried to process everything. His wife, the person he'd trusted more than anyone, had potentially been poisoning him for years. And even if they couldn't prove it criminally, his marriage was over. The garage door opened again. Daniel tensed, expecting Victoria, but it was Marcus returning from practice. Hey, Dad, the boy called out, then stopped short when he saw Daniel's expression. What happened? Come sit down, buddy. We need to talk. Daniel told his son an edited version of the truth, that the police were investigating how the device had ended up in his body, that his mother might have made a serious medical error, that things between him and Victoria were going to change. Marcus listened silently, his young face grave. When Daniel finished, the boy was quiet for a long moment. Dad, he finally said, I don't think it was an error. Daniel looked at his son sharply. What do you mean? I heard her once on the phone. She was in her office, and I was walking past, and I heard her say something like, he'll never be able to father another child, so that's taken care of. Marcus's voice was barely above a whisper. I didn't understand what it meant at the time, but now... Daniel felt like he'd been punched in the stomach. When was this? Maybe 6 months ago? A contraceptive device wouldn't prevent a man from fathering children. But if it was degrading and releasing toxic materials, If it was causing chronic inflammation and damage to his reproductive system, yes, it could certainly affect fertility. Had that been Victoria's goal all along, to make sure he could never have more children? But why? Marcus, Daniel said carefully, did your mother ever talk to you about wanting more kids? She said she didn't want any more. That one was enough. That her career was too important. Marcus looked up at his father with eyes too old for his 12 years. Dad, is Mom a bad person? Daniel pulled his son into a hug, feeling the boy tremble against him. I don't know, buddy. I really don't know. They sat together in the darkening house, and Daniel tried to figure out what the hell he was supposed to do next. His wife was a stranger. His marriage was a lie. And somewhere out there, Victoria was living a life he knew nothing about. The apartment, Summit Street. Detective Morrison had said they would check it out. But Daniel couldn't wait. He needed to know. He needed to understand what his wife had been hiding all these years. Marcus, he said suddenly, how would you feel about taking a drive? The apartment building on Summit Street was a modern complex with a security gate and well-maintained landscaping. Daniel parked across the street and studied the building directory. Unit 2B was listed under V. Sanders. Sanders, not Lane. Dad, what are we doing here? Marcus asked nervously. I just need to see something. Stay in the car, okay? No way, I'm coming with you. They approached the security gate together. Daniel was trying to figure out how to get past it when a resident came out, and he caught the door before it closed. Inside, the building was quiet and upscale. They took the elevator to the second floor. Unit 2B was at the end of the hall. Daniel stood in front of the door for a long moment, his heart pounding. Then he raised his hand and knocked. Footsteps approached. The door opened. A woman stood there, mid-30s, with short dark hair and kind eyes. She was wearing scrubs, and there was a stethoscope around her neck. Behind her, Daniel could hear children's voices. Can I help you? The woman asked. Are you Chloe Sanders? Daniel asked, though he already knew the answer. The woman's expression changed, becoming wary. Who are you? I'm Daniel Brooks, Victoria Lane's husband. The color drained from Chloe's face. Behind her, 2 children appeared, a girl of about 8 and a boy who looked maybe 5. Both had Victoria's blonde hair and blue eyes. Daniel felt the world tilt. Oh, God, Chloe whispered. She told me you knew. She said you had an arrangement. An arrangement? Daniel's voice sounded strange to his own ears. Mommy, who is it? The little girl asked. Chloe turned to the children, her voice shaking. Go to your room, sweethearts, now. The children obeyed, though the girl kept glancing back curiously. Once they were gone, Chloe turned back to Daniel. You really didn't know, she said softly. Oh, God, you really didn't know. Marcus was standing frozen beside his father, staring at the woman in the doorway. Mom has other kids? Chloe's eyes widened as she took in the boy. Another child with dark hair and eyes, clearly Daniel's son. You brought your son here? Those are his siblings, apparently, Daniel said, his voice hollow. I think he has a right to know they exist. Chloe stepped back, her hand on the doorframe as if she needed it for support. I think you'd better come in. The apartment was warm and lived in, with children's drawings on the refrigerator and toys scattered across the living room floor. Chloe gestured to the couch, and Daniel and Marcus sat down mechanically. How long? Daniel asked. 7 years, Chloe said quietly. We met at the hospital. I'm a nurse. We started as friends, and then it became more. Victoria said she was in a loveless marriage, that you were more like roommates than spouses, that you'd agreed to stay together for your son's sake, but that you both had your own lives. She lied to you. Clearly. Chloe sat down across from them, her hands shaking. The children, Emma is 8 and Noah is 5. Victoria is on their birth certificates as their parent. She used a sperm donor. We were planning to get married once. She trailed off. Once what? Chloe looked away. Once you were out of the picture. The words hung in the air like poison. Daniel felt Marcus tense beside him. What does that mean? Daniel asked carefully. I don't know. I swear to you, I don't know. Chloe's voice cracked. Victoria always said it would work out, that soon you'd be free to move on with your life, and she'd be free to move on with hers. I thought maybe she meant divorce. I thought maybe she was just waiting until your son was older."
"Did she ever talk about my health?" Daniel pressed. Chloe frowned. "She said you had chronic health problems, that you were always sick, always in pain. She said it was stressful, taking care of you." Marcus made a small sound beside his father. Daniel put a hand on his son's shoulder. "Ms. Sanders," Daniel said slowly, "my wife put a banned medical device inside my body during a surgery 7 years ago. It's been slowly poisoning me ever since. The police think she did it intentionally."
Chloe's face went white. No, Victoria would never. Would she? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like she had a pretty good motive. A husband who's slowly dying from mysterious health problems. That's convenient if you want to start a new life but don't want the messiness of divorce. I don't believe you. But Chloe's voice was weak. Daniel pulled out his phone and showed her the pathology report Dr. Pierce had sent him. Chloe read it, her hands shaking, her face growing paler with each line. "This can't be real," she whispered. "It's real. And the police are investigating. So I need you to tell me everything. Every conversation you had with Victoria about me. Every plan she made for the future. Everything." Chloe looked at the hallway where her children had disappeared, then back at Daniel. Tears were streaming down her face. "I think," she said quietly, "I think you should talk to my lawyer first." Daniel and Marcus left the apartment in silence. They drove home in silence. Only when they pulled into their driveway did Marcus finally speak. "I have sisters, a brother and a sister." "Yeah," Daniel said softly. "You do." "Mom built a whole other family. While we were here, thinking everything was normal, she was living with them." Marcus's voice broke. "Were we not enough? Was I not enough?" Daniel pulled his son into a fierce hug. "This has nothing to do with you being enough. This is about your mother making choices, terrible choices, but none of this is your fault." They sat in the car until the sun set, holding on to each other while their world fell apart. Inside the house, Daniel's phone rang. Detective Morrison. "Mr. Brooks, we have a warrant for your wife's arrest. Can you tell me where she is?" Daniel looked at the dark house, at the empty garage. "No," he said. "I have no idea where my wife is. We're going to need you to come down to the station tomorrow to give a formal statement. Ms. Sanders has agreed to cooperate with the investigation. She's provided us with some very interesting information about your wife's plans." After the call ended, Daniel sat in the darkness and waited for Victoria to come home. She never did. Victoria didn't come home that night, or the next. Her phone went straight to voicemail, and her colleagues at Mercy General claimed they hadn't seen her in 2 days. It was as if she'd simply vanished into thin air. Daniel spent those 48 hours in a strange fog, moving through the motions of everyday life while his mind struggled to process the magnitude of what he'd discovered. He made breakfast for Marcus. He answered calls from Detective Morrison. He sat in meetings with lawyers who used words like assault and attempted murder and medical malpractice that didn't seem real when applied to his wife. On the third morning, Marcus came downstairs dressed for school, but clearly hadn't slept. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, and his shoulders were hunched with a weight no 12-year-old should carry. "I don't want to go today," Marcus said quietly. Daniel looked up from his untouched coffee. "You've already missed 2 days. Everyone knows, Dad. It's all over the news. Local doctor suspected of poisoning husband. They're calling Mom a monster." Marcus's voice cracked. "Yesterday, Tyler's mom wouldn't let him sit with me at lunch. She actually pulled him away from our table." Daniel felt rage ignite in his chest. Not at Victoria this time, but at the cruelty of people who would punish a child for his mother's sins. "Pack your bag. We're going somewhere." "Where?" "Away from here. Just for a few days. Until things calm down." They threw clothes into suitcases and loaded the car. Daniel was backing out of the driveway when a black sedan pulled up, blocking their path. 2 people emerged. Detective Morrison and a man in a suit Daniel didn't recognize. "Mr. Brooks," Detective Morrison called out, "we need you to stay in town. You're a material witness. My son is being harassed at school because of this investigation. I understand that's difficult, but do you?" Daniel cut her off. "Do you understand what it's like to have your whole life exposed on the evening news? To have neighbors you've known for years suddenly afraid to make eye contact. The man in the suit stepped forward. Mr. Brooks, I'm Assistant District Attorney James Chen. We've issued a warrant for your wife's arrest on charges of aggravated assault and practicing medicine with intent to harm. Every law enforcement agency in the state is looking for her. If she contacts you, she won't, Daniel said flatly. If she does, Chen continued, you need to call us immediately. Do not meet with her alone. Do not agree to anything she asks. She's dangerous, Mr. Brooks. She's my wife. She put a toxic device inside your body and let it poison you for 7 years, Chen said bluntly. She built an entire second family while lying to your face every single day. She told her partner that you would soon be out of the picture. What part of that doesn't scream dangerous to you? Marcus was watching from the passenger seat, his young face pale. Daniel forced himself to take a breath. Fine, we'll stay in town, but my son doesn't go back to that school until this is over. Fair enough, Detective Morrison said. She handed Daniel a card. My cell number, day or night. Anything happens, you call. After they left, Daniel sat in the driveway with the engine running, trying to figure out what to do next. Marcus reached over and turned off the ignition. We can't run away from this, can we? The boy said quietly. No, buddy. I don't think we can. They went back inside. Daniel enrolled Marcus in online classes and tried to establish some kind of normalcy in a situation that was anything but normal. But every time his phone rang, his heart jumped. Every time a car drove past the house, he wondered if it was Victoria coming back. The call he was dreading finally came on the 4th day, but it wasn't from Victoria. Mr. Brooks, this is Chloe Sanders. Daniel stepped out onto the back porch, away from where Marcus was doing homework at the kitchen table. Ms. Sanders, I need to talk to you, not on the phone. Can you meet me somewhere? The police said not to, I know what the police said, but there are things about Victoria, things she told me, that I think you need to hear. Things I didn't tell the detectives because I wasn't sure if they were relevant. But after thinking about it, Chloe's voice wavered. I think you deserve to know the whole truth. They agreed to meet at a coffee shop on the other side of town, somewhere neither of them was likely to be recognized. Daniel left Marcus with a neighbor, a kind older woman named Mrs. Patterson who'd been one of the few people in the neighborhood not to treat them like pariahs, and drove across the city with his baseball cap pulled low. Chloe was already there when he arrived, sitting in a back corner booth with her hands wrapped around a cup of tea. She looked exhausted, her eyes red-rimmed, her skin pale. When she saw Daniel, she gestured for him to sit. Thank you for coming, she said quietly. Daniel slid into the booth across from her. You said you had information. I've been going through everything in my mind. Every conversation Victoria and I had about you, about our future, about her plans. And there are things that didn't make sense at the time, but now, Chloe pulled out her phone. She sent me this text 6 months ago. She turned the screen toward Daniel. The message read, The problem will resolve itself soon. His health is declining faster than I expected. By next year, we'll be free. Daniel felt sick. The problem, she meant me. I thought she was talking about divorce, about you agreeing to split up once Marcus was older, but now I realize, Chloe's hands were shaking. She was talking about you dying, wasn't she? Seems that way. There's more. Chloe scrolled through her phone. About a year ago, she started talking about life insurance. She asked me if I'd ever considered it, said it was important for families. Then a few weeks later, she mentioned that she'd increased your policy. Said it was up to $500,000 now. Daniel's blood ran cold. He'd signed paperwork about life insurance years ago, but Victoria had handled all their financial matters. He'd never questioned it. She was going to kill me, he said slowly. Not just make me sick. She was going to let that device poison me until I died, and then she'd collect the insurance money and move on with her life with you and the kids. Chloe was crying now, tears streaming down her face. I loved her. I thought she loved me. But she was using both of us, wasn't she? Yeah, Daniel said quietly. I think she was. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Chloe wiped her eyes and pulled out a manila envelope. There's something else. I went through Victoria's things at the apartment, our apartment, the home we were building together. Her voice broke on the last word. I found these. She slid the envelope across the table. Inside were medical records, Victoria's personal files from her clinic. Daniel spread them out on the table, trying to make sense of the clinical language and abbreviations. What am I looking at? Purchase orders, Chloe explained. From 2017 and 2018, Victoria ordered 6 Norplant devices from a medical supply company that was liquidating banned inventory. The company was based overseas, operating in a legal gray area. She paid cash. 6 devices? Only 1 was used on you. The others are still unaccounted for. Chloe pointed to another document. And this is her surgical log from the private clinic where she operated on you. Look at the date. Daniel scanned the page. The procedure was listed as an exploratory laparoscopy with foreign body implantation for experimental purposes. The words swam before his eyes. She documented it, he whispered. She actually wrote down what she did. I think she never expected anyone to see these records. The clinic closed down, remember? All their files were supposed to be destroyed. But Victoria kept copies. Maybe as insurance, or maybe because she was just that arrogant. Daniel looked up at Chloe. Why are you giving this to me? Because my children deserve better than a mother who's a murderer. Because you deserve justice. And because, Chloe's voice broke completely. Because I need to believe that I didn't fall in love with a monster, that the person I knew was real, even if everything she told me was a lie. Daniel gathered the papers carefully. Thank you. There's one more thing. Chloe hesitated. Victoria called me last night. Daniel's head snapped up. What? She used a burner phone, said she needed money and a place to hide. She wanted to come to the apartment to see the kids one last time before she... Chloe trailed off. Before she what? She didn't finish the sentence, but she sounded desperate, scared. She asked me if I still loved her. Chloe met Daniel's eyes. I told her I didn't know who she was anymore. Then I hung up and called Detective Morrison. Did they trace the call? It came from somewhere in Nevada, a truck stop outside of Las Vegas. But by the time police got there, she was gone. Daniel sat back in the booth, his mind racing. Victoria was running, but where and for how long? If she contacts you again, Daniel said carefully, what will you do? Tell the police. What else can I do? Chloe gathered her things to leave. Mr. Brooks? Daniel, I'm sorry for all of it. I should have questioned her story. Should have insisted on meeting you, on understanding the real situation. Instead, I just believed what I wanted to believe. We both did, Daniel said quietly. After Chloe left, Daniel sat in the coffee shop for a long time, staring at the manila envelope. Inside was proof, documentary evidence of premeditated harm. Victoria hadn't made a mistake. She hadn't accidentally implanted the wrong device. She'd deliberately purchased banned medical equipment and surgically implanted it in his body with full knowledge of what it would do to him. She'd tried to kill him slowly, painfully, in a way that would look like natural causes. The rage that had been simmering in Daniel's chest for days finally erupted. He wanted to scream, to put his fist through a wall, to find Victoria, and demand answers to questions that had no good answers. Instead, he pulled out his phone and called Detective Morrison. I have evidence, he said when she answered. Documents that prove Victoria knew exactly what she was doing. An hour later, he was at the police station, handing over Chloe's envelope to a team of investigators who handled each page like it might explode. ADA Chen was there too, his expression growing darker as he reviewed the documents. This is premeditation, Chen said finally. Clear, documented premeditation. When we find her, we're not just charging assault. We're charging attempted murder. If you find her, Daniel corrected, we'll find her. People always make mistakes when they're running. They contact old friends, use credit cards in the wrong place, show up somewhere they feel safe. Chen looked at Daniel carefully. Is there anywhere your wife might go? Family, childhood places? Anywhere she felt connected to? Daniel thought about it. Victoria rarely talked about her past. She told him her parents were dead, that she had no siblings, that she'd grown up in foster care and put herself through medical school. But now he wondered how much of that was true. I don't know, he admitted. I realize now that I never really knew her at all. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, trying to pinpoint the exact moment his marriage had become a lie. Had Victoria ever loved him? Or had he been a mark from the very beginning, someone stable and trusting who could provide cover for the life she really wanted?
Around 2 in the morning, his phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "I'm sorry." Daniel stared at the screen, his heart pounding. He knew that writing style, that particular way of crafting a minimal message. It was Victoria. His fingers moved before his brain could catch up. "Where are you?" The response came quickly. "Somewhere safe. I never meant to hurt you. You put a toxic device inside my body and let it poison me for 7 years. What did you think would happen?" I panicked. "I made a mistake. A mistake is grabbing the wrong coffee order. This was attempted murder." There was a long pause. Then, "I want to see Marcus. One last time." Daniel sat up in bed, rage flooding through him. "You don't get to see him. You don't get to explain yourself or say goodbye. You lost that right when you decided to slowly kill his father. Please, Daniel, he's my son. He's my son. You were just the person who gave birth to him. A real mother wouldn't have done what you did." Another long pause. Then, "You're right. I'm sorry. Tell him I love him. Tell him yourself. In court." The conversation ended. Daniel immediately called Detective Morrison and forwarded her the entire text exchange. She sounded wide awake despite the hour. "Good work. We're tracking the number now. Don't respond if she texts again. Just forward everything to me immediately." "She wants to see Marcus." "Absolutely not. That's not happening." "I know. Daniel trailed off. She sounded almost human for a second, like the person I thought I married. "That's how sociopaths work, Mr. Brooks. They mirror what you want to see. Don't let her manipulate you." But after the call ended, Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that Victoria's apology had been genuine. Not that it mattered. Even if she truly regretted what she'd done, it didn't change the fact that she'd systematically poisoned him while building a secret life with someone else. The next morning, Daniel woke to find Marcus already in the kitchen, staring at his phone with a stricken expression. "What's wrong?" Daniel asked. Marcus turned the screen toward him. It was a news article. "Fugitive Doctor's Secret Family Speaks Out." Below the headline was a photo of Chloe Sanders standing in front of the apartment building, her 2 children's faces blurred out. The article detailed Victoria's double life, the 7-year affair, the children she'd had with another woman while married to Daniel. "Everyone knows now," Marcus said quietly, "about Emma and Noah, about Mom's other family." Daniel sank into a chair across from his son. "I'm sorry, buddy. Are you going to meet them, my brother and sister?" The question caught Daniel off guard. "I don't know. Do you want to?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "They didn't do anything wrong. None of this is their fault, just like it's not my fault. Maybe—" He looked up at his father with eyes that seemed far too old. "Maybe they need to know they're not alone in this either." Daniel reached across the table and squeezed his son's hand. "When did you get so wise?" "I had a good teacher." That afternoon, Daniel called Chloe Sanders. She sounded wary when she answered. "I saw the news article," Daniel said. "See, I'm sorry you're dealing with this. I brought it on myself. I should have known better." "That's not true. Victoria lied to both of us." Daniel took a breath. "Marcus wants to meet his siblings, if you're comfortable with that." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Then, "I think Emma and Noah would like that too. They've been asking questions about their other brother, about whether he hates them." "He doesn't hate them. He's just trying to understand all of this." They arranged to meet at a park the following Saturday, neutral ground where the kids could interact without the weight of either household hanging over them. Daniel wasn't sure what to expect, but he knew Marcus needed this. Needed to see that he wasn't the only child caught in the wreckage of Victoria's choices. The days leading up to the meeting were tense. The media attention intensified as more details about Victoria's double life emerged. Someone leaked information about the banned medical device, and suddenly news vans were parked outside Daniel's house around the clock. Daniel hired a lawyer, not just for the criminal case against Victoria, but for everything else. Divorce proceedings, custody arrangements, financial disentanglement. The lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia Reeves, laid out the situation in stark terms. "Your wife emptied your joint bank account 3 days before she disappeared," Reeves explained during their first meeting. "She transferred it to an offshore account we're still trying to trace. She also took out a second mortgage on your house without your knowledge." "How is that possible? My name is on the deed." "She forged your signature.
We're building a case for fraud, but recovering the money will be difficult. Reeves pulled out another document. There's also the matter of the life insurance policy. She increased it to $750,000 2 months ago. Daniel felt sick. The other woman said it was $500,000. She increased it again. And here's the interesting part. She listed Chloe Sanders as the secondary beneficiary after your son. If something happened to you and Marcus was underage, Chloe would have had control of the money until Marcus turned 18. She was setting up her whole new life on my death. That's exactly what she was doing, and we're going to make sure every bit of it comes out in court. On Saturday morning, Daniel and Marcus drove to Riverside Park. It was a crisp autumn day, the trees aflame with red and gold. Chloe was already there with Emma and Noah, standing by the playground equipment looking nervous. The children eyed each other warily at first. Emma, 8 years old with her mother's blonde hair and braids, held her little brother's hand protectively. Noah, just 5, peeked out from behind his sister with curious blue eyes. Marcus stood close to Daniel, his shoulders tense. "Hi," Marcus finally said. "I'm Marcus." "I'm Emma," the girl replied. "This is Noah." Do you want to play?" Noah asked suddenly, pointing at the swings. Marcus looked up at Daniel, who nodded. "Go ahead." The children moved toward the playground, slowly at first, then with increasing ease. Within minutes, Marcus was pushing Noah on the swing while Emma demonstrated her skills on the monkey bars. Their laughter carried across the park, innocent and uncomplicated in a way the adults' interactions could never be. Daniel and Chloe sat on a bench nearby, watching. "They look happy," Chloe observed. "Yeah, kids are resilient." "I keep wondering what I'm supposed to tell them," Chloe said quietly. "About Victoria, about what she did. Emma's old enough to understand that people are saying terrible things about her mother. She asked me if Victoria is a bad person." "What did you say?" "I said that people are complicated, that we can love someone and still recognize they've done wrong." Chloe turned to look at Daniel. "Was that the right answer?" "I don't know if there is a right answer." Daniel watched Marcus help Noah climb the ladder to the slide. "I'm telling Marcus the truth, but in pieces, age-appropriate pieces. He knows his mother hurt me. He knows she lied to both of us, but I'm not giving him all the details, not yet." "Do you hate her?" Chloe asked. Daniel considered the question. "I hate what she did. I hate that she stole years of my life and almost killed me. But hate her? I don't know. Mostly I just feel empty. Like I've been mourning someone who never existed." "I know that feeling," Chloe said softly. They sat in silence for a while, two people who'd been betrayed by the same woman in different ways, watching their children build tentative bridges across the wreckage. On the drive home, Marcus was quieter than usual. Daniel glanced over at him. "You okay, buddy?" "They're nice," Marcus said. "Emma and Noah, they're good kids." "They are. It's weird, isn't it? Having siblings I didn't know about, but also kind of cool." Marcus turned to look at his father. "Can we see them again?" "If Chloe's comfortable with it, yeah, we can." "Good." Marcus went back to staring out the window. Then, "Dad, do you think Mom ever loved us? Like, really loved us?" Daniel's hands tightened on the steering wheel. It was the question he'd been asking himself for days, and he still didn't have a good answer. "I think she loved us in whatever way she was capable of loving," he said finally. "But I also think there was something broken in her, something that made her unable to love in a healthy way. And that's not your fault, Marcus. It was never about you not being enough." "But what if I'm like her?" The words came out in a rush. "What if I have that same broken thing inside me?" Daniel pulled the car over to the side of the road and turned to face his son. Marcus was crying now, tears streaming down his face. "Listen to me," Daniel said firmly. "You are not your mother. You have her genetics, yes, but you also have mine. More importantly, you have your own choices, your own character, your own moral compass. The fact that you're worried about this, that you care about being a good person, that proves you're nothing like her." "How do you know?" "Because Victoria never questioned herself, never wondered if she was doing the wrong thing. She just did what she wanted and justified it however she needed to." Daniel reached over and wiped his son's tears. "You, buddy, have a conscience, and that makes all the difference." They sat there on the side of the road for a long time, father and son, holding on to each other while cars rushed past. When they finally drove home, Marcus seemed lighter, The fear that had been haunting him slightly diminished. That night, Daniel's phone rang. Detective Morrison. "We found her," she said without preamble. "Victoria's in custody. Picked her up at a bus station in Tucson, Arizona, trying to board a bus to Mexico." Daniel sank onto the couch, relief and dread washing over him in equal measure. "Is she... How did she react?" "She didn't resist arrest. Actually seemed almost relieved. She asked about you and Marcus, asked if you were okay." "What did you tell her?" "That she'd find out everything in court. She's being extradited back here tomorrow. Arraignment is scheduled for Monday morning." Detective Morrison paused. "Mr. Brooks, you should prepare yourself. This is going to be a media circus. Every detail of your private life is going to be public record." "I know. And there's something else. Victoria's lawyer is already talking about a plea deal. Says she wants to make a statement to explain herself." "There's no explanation that makes this okay." "I agree. But the DA might consider a deal if it means avoiding a lengthy trial. I wanted you to know that's a possibility." After the call ended, Daniel sat in the darkness of his living room, trying to process the fact that his wife, his fugitive wife, was in custody. Soon she'd be in a courtroom, facing charges that could send her to prison for decades. The woman he'd once loved, once trusted completely, would be standing trial for trying to kill him. Marcus appeared in the doorway, his hair rumpled from sleep. "Was that the detective?" "Yeah. They found your mom." Marcus nodded slowly. "Good. Now maybe we can get some answers." "Maybe." "Dad? When she goes to court, do I have to see her?" Daniel looked at his son's frightened face. "Not if you don't want to. I'll make sure of it." "I don't want to. Not yet. Maybe not ever." Marcus came and sat beside his father on the couch. "Is that wrong? Should I want to see her?" "There's no wrong answer, Marcus. You get to feel however you feel about this." They sat together in the quiet house, and Daniel wondered what Victoria was thinking right now. Was she in a holding cell, contemplating the destruction she'd caused? Was she planning her defense, figuring out how to manipulate the narrative one more time? Or was she genuinely remorseful, finally understanding the magnitude of what she'd done? He supposed he'd find out soon enough. The trial was coming, and with it, the final unraveling of every lie Victoria had ever told. The courthouse steps were packed with reporters when Daniel arrived Monday morning. Cameras flashed as he climbed out of the car, their lights blinding even in the morning sun. Questions came from every direction, voices overlapping into incomprehensible noise. "Mr. Brooks, how do you feel about seeing your wife today? Did you have any idea she was living a double life? Are you seeking the maximum sentence?" Daniel kept his head down and pushed through the crowd, flanked by Detective Morrison and his lawyer, Patricia Reeves. They'd prepared him for this circus, but nothing could have truly readied him for the reality of having his private pain dissected in public. Inside the courthouse, the hallways were marginally quieter. Reeves guided Daniel to a private waiting room where they could avoid the spectators already filling the courtroom gallery. Marcus had stayed home with Mrs. Patterson, a decision Daniel didn't regret for a second. His son didn't need to see this. "Are you ready?" Reeves asked, studying Daniel's face carefully. "Does it matter?" "Not really, but I need to know you can hold it together in there. No matter what Victoria says or does, you cannot react. The prosecution's case is solid, but we don't want to give her defense any ammunition." "I'll be fine." A DA, James Chen, appeared in the doorway, his expression grim. "They're bringing her up from holding now. Brooks, I need to tell you something before we go in there. Victoria's lawyer filed a motion this morning. She wants to make a statement before entering her plea." "What kind of statement?" "We don't know. Her lawyer claims she wants to explain her actions, provide context. The judge is allowing it." Chen's jaw tightened. "Be prepared for anything. She might try to blame you, claim abuse, say she was acting in self-defense. Defense attorneys get creative when the evidence is this damning." Daniel felt his stomach twist. After everything Victoria had done, she was going to stand up in court and lie about him? Paint herself as the victim? "Let her try," Daniel said quietly. "The evidence speaks for itself." The courtroom was packed when they entered. Daniel took his seat in the front row directly behind the prosecution table. Across the aisle, he could see Chloe Sanders sitting with a woman who must be her lawyer. Their eyes met briefly, and Chloe gave him a small, sad nod. The bailiff called for everyone to rise as Judge Margaret Thornton entered. She was a severe-looking woman in her 60s with steel-gray hair and the kind of penetrating gaze that suggested she'd heard every excuse and seen every manipulation in her decades on the bench. "Be seated," Judge Thornton said crisply. "Bring in the defendant." A door at the side of the courtroom opened, and Victoria was led in by two deputies. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. She was wearing an orange jumpsuit, her blonde hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, no makeup. She looked smaller somehow, diminished without the armor of her white coat and professional credentials. Victoria's eyes scanned the courtroom and found Daniel immediately. For a moment, something flickered across her face. Regret? Fear? It was gone before he could identify it. She turned away and stood beside her attorney, a sharply dressed man named Robert Caldwell, who had a reputation for defending impossible cases. Judge Thornton reviewed the charges in a flat professional tone. "Dr. Victoria Lane, you are charged with attempted murder in the first degree, aggravated assault with intent to cause serious bodily harm, fraud, medical malpractice causing severe injury, and unlawful implantation of a banned medical device. How do you plead?" Caldwell stood. "Your Honor, before my client enters a plea, she has requested permission to make a statement to the court." Judge Thornton's eyebrows rose. "This is highly irregular." "I understand, Your Honor, but my client believes the court deserves to hear her perspective before proceeding." "Your client will have ample opportunity to present her perspective during trial, Counselor." "Your Honor, please." Victoria's voice cut through the courtroom and everyone turned to look at her. "I need to say this. I need him to hear this." Her eyes found Daniel again. "Please." Judge Thornton was silent for a long moment. Then she nodded curtly. "You may speak, Dr. Lane. But I warn you, anything you say can and will be used against you in these proceedings." Victoria stepped forward, her hands clasped in front of her. She looked directly at Daniel, and when she spoke, her voice was steady but thick with emotion. "Daniel, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect you to understand. But I need you to know that I never wanted to hurt you, not in the beginning." Caldwell put a hand on her arm, clearly trying to stop her, but Victoria shook him off. "When we met 15 years ago, I was a different person. Or maybe I was always this person, and I just hadn't accepted it yet. I was living the life I thought I was supposed to live. Married to a good man, building a traditional family, but I was lying to myself about who I really was." Daniel's hands clenched into fists. Detective Morrison, sitting beside him, placed a warning hand on his shoulder. "When I met Chloe," Victoria continued, "everything changed. For the first time in my life, I felt like I could be myself, like I could breathe, and I knew I had to make a choice. But I was a coward, Daniel. Instead of being honest with you, instead of just asking for a divorce, I convinced myself there was another way." "Your Honor," Chen interjected, "the defendant is making a confession that—" "Let her speak," Judge Thornton said quietly. "I want to hear this." Victoria's eyes were shining with tears now. "I told myself it would be painless, that you'd just get sick gradually, naturally, that it would look like a chronic condition, something unavoidable. I convinced myself I was being merciful, that a quick divorce would destroy you financially and emotionally, that this way was better." "Better?" The word exploded out of Daniel before he could stop himself. "You thought poisoning me was better?" "Mr. Brooks," Judge Thornton warned. Victoria flinched but kept talking. "I know how it sounds. I know what I did was monstrous. But I need you to understand. I didn't see it that way at the time. I'd compartmentalized so completely that I could perform that surgery, implant that device, and then go home and kiss you goodnight and feel nothing. It was like I'd split myself into two people, the wife and mother in one house, and the person I really was in another." "This is insane," Reeves muttered beside Daniel. "I kept telling myself it would be over soon," Victoria said, "that you'd pass away peacefully in your sleep, that Marcus would grieve but recover, that I could transition to my real life without anyone getting hurt. But you didn't die, Daniel. You kept fighting, kept surviving, even as that device poisoned you, and every day you woke up, I felt more trapped, more desperate." "So you increased the life insurance," Chen called out. "You forged documents and emptied bank accounts." "Yes," Victoria said simply, "because I'd gone too far to turn back. Because admitting what I'd done would destroy everything. My medical license, my relationship with Chloe, my children. So I kept going, kept lying, kept hoping that nature would just take its course. Judge Thornton leaned forward. Dr. Lane, I strongly advise you to stop talking and consult with your attorney. No, Victoria shook her head. I'm done lying. I'm done pretending. She turned back to Daniel. When you went to that emergency room, when Dr. Pierce found that device, I knew it was over. I could have stayed and faced it then, but I ran. I took the money and ran because I'm a coward, Daniel. I've always been a coward. The courtroom was silent except for the sound of Victoria's quiet crying. I destroyed your life, she said. I destroyed Chloe's life. I destroyed my children's lives. And for what? Because I was too scared to have an honest conversation about who I really was? Because I valued my comfort and reputation more than your actual life? Caldwell was standing now, trying to get his client to sit down, but Victoria ignored him. I don't want a trial, she said. I don't want to drag this out and make you relive it all. I'm guilty, Your Honor, of all of it, every single charge, and I deserve whatever punishment this court sees fit to give me. The courtroom erupted. Reporters were frantically typing. Spectators were whispering. Caldwell was practically shouting at his client to stop talking. But Judge Thornton simply banged her gavel once, and silence fell. Dr. Lane, the judge said carefully, are you saying you wish to enter a guilty plea to all charges? Yes, Your Honor. Against the advice of your counsel? Yes, Your Honor. Caldwell threw up his hands in frustration. Your Honor, I need a recess to speak with my client. Denied. Judge Thornton's gaze never left Victoria. Dr. Lane, do you understand that by pleading guilty to attempted murder in the first degree, you face a mandatory minimum sentence of 25 years in prison? I understand. And you're making this plea voluntarily, of your own free will, with full understanding of the consequences? Yes, Your Honor. Judge Thornton sat back in her chair, studying Victoria for a long moment. Then she turned to Chen. Does the prosecution accept this plea? Chen stood, clearly trying to process what had just happened. We do, Your Honor, though we'd like to reserve the right to present victim impact statements before sentencing. Granted. Dr. Lane, I'm accepting your guilty plea on all charges. Sentencing will be scheduled for 30 days from today, which will give the court time to review pre-sentencing reports and hear from all affected parties. Until then, you'll remain in custody without bail. Judge Thornton banged her gavel. We're adjourned. As the deputies led Victoria away, she looked back at Daniel one last time. Her lips moved, forming words he couldn't hear over the chaos in the courtroom. It looked like, I'm sorry. Daniel sat frozen in his seat while the courtroom emptied around him. Reeves was talking to him, Chen was talking to him, but he couldn't process their words. Victoria had just confessed, had just admitted to everything, had just thrown away any chance at a defense. Mr. Brooks? Detective Morrison's voice finally broke through. Are you okay? I don't know, Daniel said honestly. I don't know what I thought I'd feel. Relief? Vindication? But I just feel empty. That's normal, Morrison said gently. You've been living with this trauma for weeks now, and your body doesn't know how to process the sudden resolution. It's not resolved. She still tried to kill me. She still lied for 7 years. A guilty plea doesn't undo any of that. No, Morrison agreed. But it does mean justice, and sometimes that's all we can ask for. Outside the courthouse, the media frenzy was even worse than before. News of Victoria's confession had already spread, and reporters were shouting questions about whether Daniel felt vindicated, whether he'd forgiven his wife, whether he thought the sentence would be long enough. Reeves shepherded Daniel through the crowd and into her car. Once they were safely away from the courthouse, she turned to him. That was unexpected, she said. I've never seen anything like it in 20 years of practice. Defendants don't just stand up and confess in open court. Why do you think she did it? Honestly, I think guilt finally caught up with her. Or maybe she realized that fighting would only make things worse, drag it out longer, cause more pain. Some people reach a breaking point where they just want it to be over. Daniel stared out the window at the city passing by. She said she was a coward. She was right about that, but at least she found enough courage at the end to tell the truth. That counts for something. Does it? Reeves didn't answer. When Daniel got home, Marcus was waiting in the living room. Mrs. Patterson had clearly told him what happened because the boy's face was tight with tension.
Did she really confess? Marcus asked. Yeah, buddy, she did. So it's over? Not quite. There's still sentencing in a month, but the trial part is over. She's going to prison. Marcus absorbed this silently. Then, can I ask you something? Always. Do you think she meant it when she said she was sorry? Daniel sank onto the couch beside his son. I think she meant it in the moment. Whether that makes up for what she did, I don't know. Sorry doesn't give me back the years she stole, doesn't undo the damage to my body, doesn't erase the fact that she was willing to let me die. But it's something, Marcus said quietly. Better than nothing. Yeah, I guess it is. That evening, Daniel's phone rang. It was Chloe Sanders. I need to talk to you, she said without preamble, about Victoria, about what happens next. They agreed to meet at the same coffee shop where they'd talked before. This time, Chloe looked even more exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, her hands shaking as she held her coffee cup. Emma and Noah saw the news, Chloe said. They know their mother pleaded guilty. Emma asked me if Victoria is a bad person who doesn't love them anymore. What did you tell her? I told her that people can do terrible things and still love their children, that love and actions aren't always aligned. Chloe's voice cracked. But I don't know if I believe that anymore, Daniel. How do you love someone and systematically poison them? How do you tuck your kids into bed at night and then plot someone's murder? I've been asking myself the same questions. Victoria's lawyer called me today, said she wants to see the kids before sentencing, wants to say goodbye. Chloe looked up at Daniel with haunted eyes. Should I let her? Daniel thought about Marcus, about his son's fear of becoming like his mother, his desperate need to believe there was still something redeemable in the woman who gave birth to him. I think, Daniel said slowly, that decision has to be yours, and theirs. If Emma and Noah want to see her, if they need that closure, then maybe you should let them. But if they don't, if the idea terrifies them, then you protect them from it. What about Marcus? Does he want to see her? No, not yet. Maybe not ever. And I'm not going to force him. Chloe nodded. I keep thinking about all the time we had together. Victoria and me. 7 years of what I thought was love. And I can't figure out which parts were real and which were performance. Did she ever really love me? Or was I just convenient? A way to have the life she wanted while maintaining the cover of her marriage? I don't think we'll ever know, Daniel said. And maybe that's something we both have to accept, that the person we loved was a fiction, and the real Victoria is someone neither of us ever truly knew. They sat in silence for a while, two people trying to make sense of the incomprehensible. The kids are asking to see Marcus again, Chloe said eventually. Emma especially. She says having a brother makes her feel less alone in all this. Marcus wants to see them too. Maybe we can arrange something regular? Weekly visits or something? I'd like that. Chloe managed a weak smile. At least something good can come out of this mess. Those kids deserve to know each other. Over the following weeks, a routine emerged. Every Saturday, Daniel and Marcus would meet Chloe, Emma, and Noah at the park. The children would play while the adults sat on benches and tried to navigate their complicated new reality. Marcus proved to be a natural big brother, patient with Noah's endless questions and protective of Emma's quieter sensibilities. Meanwhile, the legal machinery ground forward. Chen kept Daniel updated on the pre-sentencing investigation. The medical board had already revoked Victoria's license permanently. The state medical examiner had completed a full analysis of the damage the device had caused to Daniel's body. Chronic inflammation, tissue scarring, elevated heavy metal levels that would require monitoring for years to come. The doctor says you're lucky to be alive, Chen told Daniel during one of their meetings. Another year or two, and the toxicity levels would have caused irreversible organ damage, possibly death. Daniel tried to process that information. Victoria had been that close to succeeding. If he hadn't gone to the emergency room that day, if Dr. Pierce hadn't been thorough, if the device hadn't shown up on the scan. Mr. Brooks? Chen was watching him carefully. You should know that we're recommending the maximum sentence. Victoria may have pleaded guilty, but the premeditation and the length of time over which she carried out this crime warrant the harshest possible punishment. How long? We're asking for 35 years.
With good behavior, she might get out in 25. But given her age, it's effectively a life sentence.
Daniel thought about Victoria in prison for the next 25 years, thought about Emma and Noah growing up without their mother, thought about Marcus, who would be nearly 40 years old before Victoria walked free. She deserves it, Daniel said quietly. But those kids don't deserve to lose their mother.
No, Chen agreed. They don't. But that's not your fault, Mr. Brooks. That's on Victoria. She made these choices. The week before sentencing, Daniel received a letter. It was from Victoria, handwritten on prison stationery. He stared at the envelope for a long time before opening it. The letter was short. Daniel, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I know I have no right to ask anything of you. But there are things I need you to know before I'm sentenced. Things I couldn't say in court. You asked me once, years ago, if I was happy. I told you I was. That was a lie. I haven't been happy since I was a teenager, since before I understood that the person I was supposed to be and the person I actually was would never align. I thought marrying you would fix me, make me normal. But it just made me a liar. I want you to know that I did love you in my own broken way. You were kind and good and everything I should have wanted, and I hated myself for not being able to want it enough, for needing something else, something I couldn't even name at first. When I met Chloe, it was like a dam breaking. Suddenly, I could see the life I was supposed to have, the person I was supposed to be. And I wanted it so desperately that I convinced myself any price was acceptable, even your life. I know that's monstrous. I know there's no justification for what I did. But I need you to understand, it wasn't about you being inadequate. You weren't. You were perfect. I was the broken one. Marcus is the best thing I ever did. The only purely good thing in my entire life. Please tell him that. Tell him his mother loves him, even though she doesn't deserve to. Tell him not to waste his life being angry at me. Tell him to be better than I was. I'm sorry, Daniel. For all of it. I'm so sorry. Victoria. Daniel read the letter 3 times, then set it aside. Marcus found him sitting in the dark kitchen an hour later. Dad, you okay? Daniel handed his son the letter. Your mom wrote to me. You should read it. Marcus took the letter with trembling hands. Daniel watched emotions flicker across his son's face as he read. Pain, anger, sadness, confusion. When he finished, he folded the letter carefully and handed it back. Do you believe her? Marcus asked. That she loved us? I believe she thinks she did. Whether that's the same thing as actually loving someone? I don't know, buddy. I really don't know. I don't want to hate her, Marcus said quietly. But I don't know how to not hate her either. You don't have to figure it out right now. You've got time. We both do. The sentencing hearing was scheduled for a Thursday morning. This time, Daniel left Marcus at home without question. The courtroom was packed again, but the atmosphere was different, more somber, less chaotic. Victoria was led in wearing the same orange jumpsuit, her face pale and composed. Judge Thornton reviewed the pre-sentencing reports, the victim impact statements, the recommendations from both the prosecution and the defense. Then she looked at Victoria. Does the defendant wish to make a statement before sentencing? Victoria stood. Yes, Your Honor. She turned to face Daniel directly. I know my apology means nothing. I know I can't undo what I've done. But I want you to know that I will spend every day of my sentence thinking about the pain I caused you, about the years I stole from you, about the trust I destroyed. She turned to where Chloe was sitting. I'm sorry for lying to you, for using you, for making you complicit in something you knew nothing about. You deserve so much better than what I gave you. Finally, she addressed the judge. Your Honor, I'm not asking for mercy. I'm asking that whatever sentence you impose, you make it clear that this was my choice, my crime, my responsibility. No one else is to blame. Not my husband, not my partner, not anyone. This was all me. Judge Thornton was silent for a long moment. Then she spoke, her voice carrying the weight of years of judicial experience. Dr. Victoria Lane, in my 30 years on the bench, I have seen many cases of domestic violence, of spousal abuse, of crimes born from desperation or passion or momentary insanity. This is not one of those cases. What you did was calculated, methodical, and sustained over a period of years. You used your medical expertise to slowly poison your husband, all while maintaining the facade of a caring spouse and physician. You betrayed every oath you took, as a doctor, as a wife, as a mother. Victoria stood motionless, her head bowed. The impact of your actions extends far beyond your husband's physical injuries, Judge Thornton continued. You have traumatized your son, who will spend years grappling with the knowledge that his mother tried to kill his father. You have destroyed the trust of your partner and condemned your other children to grow up with a mother in prison. You have violated the sacred trust between physician and patient in the most egregious way possible. The judge paused, letting her words sink in. However, I also note that you ultimately chose to take responsibility for your actions, that you pleaded guilty and spared your victims the trauma of a lengthy trial, that you have expressed genuine remorse, however inadequate that remorse may be in the face of your crimes. Judge Thornton looked down at her notes, then back at Victoria. On the charge of attempted murder in the first degree, I sentence you to 30 years in prison. On the charge of aggravated assault with intent to cause serious bodily harm, I sentence you to 10 years in prison, to run concurrently. On the charges of fraud and medical malpractice, I sentence you to 5 years on each count, also concurrent. You will serve a minimum of 25 years before being eligible for parole. You are hereby remanded to state custody. Victoria's shoulders sagged, but she didn't cry, didn't protest. She simply nodded once, accepting her fate. Additionally, Judge Thornton said, I am ordering you to pay full restitution to Daniel Brooks for all medical expenses, lost wages, and emotional damages. The amount will be determined in a separate civil proceeding, but I want it on record that financial compensation is owed. The gavel came down with a sharp crack of finality. As the deputies led Victoria away, she looked back at Daniel one last time. This time she didn't mouth an apology. She just looked at him, really looked at him, and Daniel saw something in her eyes he'd never seen before. Acceptance. She knew what she'd done. She knew what she deserved, and she was ready to face it. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed again, but Daniel barely noticed them. Chen and Reeves were talking about the civil proceedings, about ensuring Daniel would be compensated for the medical monitoring he'd need for the rest of his life, but their voices seemed distant. All Daniel could think about was that it was over. Victoria would spend the next 25 years in prison. His marriage was officially dead. His life as he'd known it was gone. But he was alive. Against all odds, despite Victoria's best efforts, he was alive. And that, Daniel realized, was what mattered. The house felt different when Daniel returned home that afternoon. Quieter somehow, as if the walls themselves knew that the storm had finally passed. Marcus was waiting in the living room, his laptop open but clearly not focused on whatever assignment was displayed on the screen. It's done, Daniel said, closing the door behind him. Marcus looked up, his young face searching his father's expression for clues. How long? 30 years. She'll be eligible for parole in 25. The boy absorbed this information silently, his fingers still resting on the keyboard. That's longer than I've been alive. Twice as long. Yeah, buddy, it is. Do you think it's enough? Marcus asked quietly. For what she did? Daniel moved to sit beside his son on the couch. I don't know if any sentence would feel like enough, but it's what the judge decided, and I have to trust that she considered everything carefully. Did Mom cry when they told her? No, she just accepted it, like she knew it was coming and had made peace with it. Daniel studied his son's face. How are you feeling about all this? Marcus closed his laptop and set it aside. Relieved, I guess, but also sad. Is that weird? To be sad for someone who tried to kill your dad? It's not weird at all. She's still your mother, Marcus. You're allowed to feel complicated things about her. Emma called me today, Marcus said. She was crying. Said she doesn't understand why her mom had to go away. She's only 8, Dad. She doesn't get it. What did you tell her? I told her that sometimes adults make really bad choices and have to face consequences. That it doesn't mean her mom doesn't love her, just that she did something very wrong. Marcus's voice wavered. I didn't know what else to say. Daniel pulled his son into a hug. You said exactly the right thing. They sat together in the quiet house, and Daniel realized that this was the first moment of true peace he'd felt in months. Not happiness exactly, but the absence of the constant dread that had been his companion since Dr. Pierce had pulled that device from his body. The waiting was over. The uncertainty was gone. Now came the hard part, learning to live with what remained. The next few weeks passed in a blur of legal proceedings and medical appointments. The civil case against Victoria moved forward, though her lawyer argued she had no assets to compensate Daniel with since she'd spent or hidden most of her money. Patricia Reeves was relentless, however, tracking down bank accounts and hidden assets with the determination of a bloodhound. "We found another account in the Cayman Islands," Reeves reported during one of their meetings. "She transferred nearly $200,000 there over the past 3 years. We're working with international authorities to freeze it." "Will I actually see any of that money?" "Eventually, yes. It's going to take time, but we'll get it. And the house is in both your names, so you have full ownership now. She can't touch it from prison." The house. Daniel had been trying not to think about the house, the home he'd shared with Victoria for 15 years, where they'd raised Marcus, where he'd believed they were building a life together. Every room held memories that now felt tainted, like photographs that had been revealed as elaborate forgeries. "I'm thinking about selling it," Daniel admitted, "starting fresh somewhere new." "That might be wise. A clean break." Reeves made a note on her legal pad. "Just wait until the civil case is settled. We don't want Victoria's creditors trying to claim any proceeds." Daniel's health was improving slowly. The inflammation was subsiding and his energy levels were better than they'd been in years. But Dr. Pierce had been clear about the long-term implications. "You'll need regular monitoring for the rest of your life," Pierce explained during a follow-up appointment. "The heavy metal exposure has done damage that we can't fully reverse. Your kidney function is permanently reduced, and there's scarring throughout your abdominal cavity that could cause complications down the line." "But I'm not dying?" "No, you're not dying. With proper care and regular checkups, you should have a normal lifespan. But this is something you'll be managing forever." Pierce's expression softened. "I'm sorry, Daniel. You didn't deserve any of this." "No," Daniel agreed. "I didn't." The relationship between the three families, Daniel and Marcus, Chloe and her children, and now Victoria's absence creating a void they all had to navigate, continued to evolve. The Saturday park visits became a fixture, something all the children looked forward to. Emma had started calling Marcus on school nights to talk about her day, and Noah had appointed himself Marcus's shadow during their visits, following his older brother everywhere with wide-eyed admiration. One Saturday afternoon, while the kids were playing on the jungle gym, Chloe turned to Daniel with an unexpected question. "Have you thought about whether you'll visit her?" Daniel didn't need to ask who she meant. "No, I haven't. She's been writing to me, letters from prison, asking about the kids, asking if I've forgiven her." Chloe stared at her coffee cup. "I haven't responded." "Do you want to forgive her?" "I don't know. Some days I think I could, eventually. Other days I'm so angry I can barely breathe." Chloe looked up at him. "She asked specifically about you in the last letter. Wanted to know if you were recovering, if Marcus was okay, like she still has the right to know these things." "What are you going to tell her?" "Nothing. I'm not responding to any of them." Chloe's jaw set with determination. She made her choices. Now she gets to live with the consequences, and part of those consequences is not knowing how we're doing, not having access to our lives anymore. Daniel understood that impulse. Victoria had spent years controlling the narrative, manipulating the people around her, playing different roles for different audiences. Taking away her access to information was one of the few ways they could reclaim power in a situation where she'd held all the cards for so long. Emma asked if she could write to Victoria, Chloe continued. "I told her maybe when she's older, when she can understand more fully what happened." "Is she asking a lot of questions?" "Constantly." "Why did Victoria do it? Did she really want to hurt you? Is that what love looks like when it goes wrong?" Chloe's voice cracked. "I don't have good answers for her, Daniel. How do you explain to an 8-year-old that the person who gave birth to her is capable of attempted murder?" "I'm still trying to figure out how to explain it to a 12-year-old, Daniel admitted. "Marcus asked me last week if he should be afraid of himself, if he inherited whatever made Victoria capable of doing what she did." "What did you tell him?" "That biology isn't destiny, that he gets to choose who he becomes, regardless of what's in his DNA." Daniel watched Marcus helping Noah navigate the monkey bars, the older boy's patience and gentleness evident in every interaction. And I told him to look at his own actions, at the person he already is. That tells him more about his character than any genetic inheritance ever could.
Chloe smiled sadly. He's a good kid. You raised him right. We both did, Daniel said, then caught himself.
I mean, I thought we both did. But I guess I don't know how much of Victoria's parenting was genuine and how much was just part of the performance. I think about that too, whether anything about our life together was real, whether she ever actually loved me or if I was just convenient. Chloe watched Emma doing cartwheels on the grass. But then I look at our kids and I think she couldn't have faked all of it. The way she was with them when they were babies, the patience she had with Emma's nightmares, the hours she spent teaching Noah to read, that had to be real. Maybe, Daniel said. Or maybe she's just really good at compartmentalizing, at being whatever person the situation required. They sat in silence for a while, watching the children play. Finally, Chloe spoke again. My therapist says I need to stop trying to figure out what was real and what wasn't. Says it doesn't matter anymore, that I'll never know for sure, and obsessing over it is just giving Victoria power she doesn't deserve. Are you seeing a therapist? 3 times a week, court-ordered, actually. Part of the custody arrangement to make sure I can provide a stable environment for Emma and Noah despite everything that's happened. Chloe glanced at Daniel. Are you? Yeah,
Marcus and I both are. Separately and together sometimes. Does it help? Daniel considered the question. Some days more than others, it's hard work, unpacking everything, looking at all the ways I miss the signs, figuring out how to trust people again. But yeah, I think it helps. At least it gives me tools to deal with the anger when it gets overwhelming. The anger is the worst part, Chloe agreed. Some days I'm fine, and then suddenly I'll remember something, a conversation we had, a promise she made, and I'll just be furious all over again. Marcus came running over, slightly out of breath. Dad, can we get ice cream? Noah says there's a good place a few blocks from here. Daniel looked at Chloe, who nodded. Sure, buddy, let's round everyone up. The 5 of them walked to the ice cream shop together, the children chattering excitedly about flavors while the adults trailed behind. To an outside observer, they might have looked like a family, unconventional perhaps, but a family nonetheless. Daniel found himself wondering if that's what they were becoming. Not the family any of them had planned, but the one they'd built from the ruins Victoria had left behind. At the ice cream shop, Noah insisted on holding Daniel's hand while they waited in line, and Emma showed Marcus pictures on her phone of a school project she was working on. The normalcy of it all felt surreal given the circumstances that had brought them together. I'm glad we have you, Emma said suddenly, looking up at Marcus with serious eyes. It makes this whole thing less scary, having a brother. Marcus's face softened. I'm glad I have you guys too, even though I wish we'd met in a better way. Do you think about her a lot? Emma asked. Our mom? Daniel tensed, but Marcus handled the question with surprising maturity. Sometimes. But mostly I try to focus on the stuff that's happening now. The people who are actually here. He smiled at his younger sister. Like you. When they returned to the park to say goodbye, Noah clung to Marcus's leg, not wanting the afternoon to end. I wish you lived with us, the little boy said. Then we could play every day. Marcus knelt down to Noah's level. I can't live with you, buddy, but we'll keep having our Saturday adventures, okay? That's something to look forward to. On the drive home, Marcus was quieter than usual. Daniel let the silence stretch, knowing his son would talk when he was ready. Dad, Marcus finally said as they pulled into their driveway. Do you think Emma and Noah are going to be okay? Like, long term? I think they've got a good chance. Chloe's a good mom, and they've got each other. And now they've got you as a big brother. What about us? Are we going to be okay? Daniel turned off the engine and faced his son. Yeah, Marcus. We're going to be okay. It might take time, and some days are going to be harder than others, but we're going to get through this. How do you know? Because we already have. The worst has already happened, and we survived it. Everything from here is just learning to live with what we know now. Inside the house, Daniel started making dinner while Marcus retreated to his room to do homework. The routine of it felt good, normal tasks in a normal home on a normal evening. As Daniel chopped vegetables for a stir-fry, his phone rang. It was Detective Morrison. Mr. Brooks, I wanted to give you a heads up.
Victoria made a request through her lawyer to have a supervised visit with Marcus. Daniel's hand stilled on the cutting board. What? It's her right to request it. Doesn't mean it'll be granted, but the court will consider it. They'll want to know Marcus's feelings on the matter. He doesn't want to see her. He's made that very clear. Then tell that to the court-appointed mediator when they call you. If Marcus doesn't want contact, the judge will likely respect that, especially given his age and the circumstances. Morrison paused. How are you holding up? Better? Some days, anyway. And your health? Improving, slowly but surely. Daniel set down the knife. Detective, can I ask you something? In all your years doing this job, have you ever seen anything like what Victoria did? Morrison was quiet for a moment. I've seen a lot of different kinds of evil, Mr. Brooks. Some explosive, some calculated. What your wife did, it was uniquely cruel because it was sustained over such a long period. Most crimes of passion happen in moments. This was years of deliberate action. That takes a special kind of detachment. Do you think she's a sociopath? I'm not a psychologist, so I can't diagnose. But I will say this, most people who do terrible things at least struggle with guilt along the way. From what we've seen, Victoria seemed to function just fine while slowly poisoning you. That level of compartmentalization isn't typical. After the call ended, Daniel stood in the kitchen for a long time, staring at the half-prepared dinner. Then he called Marcus down. We need to talk about something, Daniel said when his son appeared. Your mother has requested permission to have a supervised visit with you. The color drained from Marcus's face. I don't want to see her. I know, and you don't have to, but a mediator is going to call and ask you directly about your feelings. I want you to be prepared for that. What should I say? The truth. Whatever you're feeling, that's what you tell them. Marcus sat down at the kitchen table, his hands clasped in front of him. Part of me wants to see her, wants to ask her why, wants to understand how someone could do what she did. But a bigger part is just scared. Scared that she'll try to manipulate me or make excuses or somehow convince me that I'm wrong to be angry at her. Those are all valid feelings. What would you do if you were me? Daniel considered the question carefully. Honestly, I don't know. She's your mother and you have a right to that relationship if you want it, but you also have a right to protect yourself from someone who caused you tremendous pain. There's no wrong answer here, Marcus. Did you know, Marcus said quietly, that I used to brag about her at school? About having a doctor for a mom? I thought it was so cool that she saved babies, helped families, and now I can't even think about that without feeling sick. I'm sorry, buddy. It's not your fault. Marcus looked up at his father with tears in his eyes. None of this is your fault, but it is hers, and I don't think I'm ready to face her yet. Maybe someday, but not now. Then that's what you'll tell the mediator. The mediator called 3 days later. Daniel listened from the other room as Marcus calmly but firmly explained his position, that he wasn't ready for contact with his mother, that he needed more time to process everything that had happened, that maybe in the future he'd reconsider, but for now, he needed distance. When Marcus hung up, he looked relieved. She said the court would respect my wishes, that Victoria can try again in 6 months if she wants, but for now, there won't be any forced contact. How do you feel? Good. Scared she'll be mad, but good. She doesn't get to be mad at you, Marcus, not after what she did. Over the following months, a new rhythm established itself. Daniel threw himself into rebuilding their life, starting with small changes. He painted Marcus's room in colors the boy actually liked instead of the neutral tones Victoria had insisted on. He rearranged the living room furniture, breaking up the formal layout Victoria had preferred. He cooked meals they enjoyed rather than the meticulously healthy menus Victoria had planned. Each change felt like reclaiming space, like exorcising a ghost from their home. The civil case finally settled 6 months after Victoria's sentencing. Reeves had managed to recover most of the hidden money, and the judge awarded Daniel substantial damages for medical expenses, pain and suffering, and the ongoing health monitoring he'd require. It wasn't enough to undo what had been done, but it was enough to provide security for Marcus's future education and ensure Daniel could afford whatever medical care he might need. You could retire if you wanted, Reeves told him when the settlement check arrived, or at least cut back significantly on work. But Daniel found that work helped. The physical labor of construction, the camaraderie with his crew, the satisfaction of building something tangible. It grounded him in ways that sitting at home never could. He kept working, though he did reduce his hours and was more selective about the projects he took on. Marcus continued to thrive despite everything. His grades remained strong, and he joined the basketball team at his new school. The Saturday visits with Emma and Noah had expanded to include occasional weekday hangouts, and Daniel had developed an unexpected friendship with Chloe based on their shared experience of being betrayed by the same person. "It's strange," Chloe remarked one evening when she had stopped by to drop off some of Emma's schoolwork that Marcus was helping her with. "How something so terrible can lead to connections that feel valuable." "Silver linings," Daniel agreed, "though I'd rather not have needed them." "Of course. But since we're here anyway," Chloe gestured around the kitchen, which Daniel had recently renovated. "You've made a lot of changes to the house, trying to make it feel like mine again." "Ours," he corrected, thinking of Marcus. "Not hers." "I did the same thing with the apartment. Painted all the walls, got new furniture, changed everything I could change." Chloe smiled sadly. "But I still see her sometimes, in the corner where she used to read to the kids, or at the kitchen table where we had breakfast together. The ghosts are harder to evict than the memories." "Yeah," Daniel said. "I know what you mean." Emma appeared in the doorway, her homework clutched in one hand. "Marcus says I need to show you my essay before he'll help me edit it. He says you're the grammar expert." Daniel laughed. "I don't know about expert, but let's take a look." As he read through Emma's essay about her favorite book, helping her restructure sentences and fix punctuation, Daniel felt something shift inside him. This girl, who shared half her DNA with Marcus, who'd been born into a lie just like his son had been, she deserved better than the hand she'd been dealt. They all did. And maybe, just maybe, they could give each other that. Not the family they'd planned, but a family nonetheless. A year after Victoria's sentencing, Daniel received another letter from her. This one was different from the first, less apologetic, more reflective. "Daniel, I don't expect you to read this. I don't expect you to care about my thoughts or feelings after what I did. But I'm writing anyway because my therapist here says I need to take accountability not just for my actions, but for the person I was when I committed them. I've had a lot of time to think about who I was and why I made the choices I made. Prison has a way of stripping away all the lies you tell yourself. There's nowhere to hide from your own thoughts, no distractions from the truth of what you've done. I was a coward. I told you that in court, but I don't think I fully understood what it meant until now. I was so terrified of being rejected for who I really was that I built an entire false life. And when that false life felt suffocating, instead of having the courage to dismantle it honestly, I tried to solve the problem by eliminating you. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know that I understand now what I took from you. Not just years of health, but trust. The ability to take someone at their word. The belief that the people closest to you have your best interests at heart. I destroyed that for you, and I'm sorry. Not because sorry fixes anything, but because it's the truth. I hear through my lawyer that Marcus is doing well, that he's made honor roll and joined the basketball team, that he's becoming a good man despite having me as a mother. I'm grateful for that. Grateful that you're raising him to be better than I ever was. Take care of yourself, Daniel. You deserve so much better than what I gave you. Victoria. Daniel read the letter once, then folded it and put it in a drawer. He didn't respond. Didn't feel the need to. Victoria was working through her own process of accountability, and that was fine. But he didn't owe her absolution or engagement. His energy needed to go toward building the future, not processing the past. Marcus had made his decision about contact with his mother, and Daniel respected it. The boy still wasn't ready, though he'd started keeping the letters Victoria sent him. Not reading them yet, but not throwing them away either. Saving them for a future version of himself who might be ready to engage with the complicated truth of who his mother was. Maybe when I'm older, Marcus had explained. When I've got more distance from it all. Right now, it still hurts too much. That's wise, Daniel had told him. You get to set your own timeline for this. One evening, as Daniel was cleaning up after dinner, Marcus came downstairs with his laptop. Dad, can I show you something? Of course. Marcus opened a document, an essay he'd written for his English class about resilience and family. It detailed, in careful, thoughtful prose, the experience of discovering his mother's crimes and learning to rebuild his life afterward. It talked about finding siblings he didn't know he had, about learning that family could be chosen as much as inherited, about the courage it took to trust people again after such a profound betrayal. "This is beautiful, Marcus," Daniel said, his voice thick with emotion. "Really beautiful. I wanted to show you before I turned it in, to make sure it was okay that I wrote about it. It's more than okay. I'm proud of you for processing this in such a healthy way." Marcus closed the laptop. "I was thinking about what you said, about how the worst has already happened, and everything from here is just learning to live with it. I think you're right. I think we're going to be okay."
"Yeah, buddy, we are." And in that moment, sitting in their renovated kitchen in the house they were slowly reclaiming, Daniel believed it. They were survivors. They were building something new from the wreckage. They were okay.
2 years after Victoria's sentencing, Daniel stood in the backyard of his house watching Marcus play basketball with Emma and Noah. The hoop he'd installed last spring was getting constant use, and the sound of the ball bouncing against concrete had become as familiar as birdsong. The yard had transformed over the past months. New landscaping, a patio he'd built himself, a fire pit where they gathered on cool evenings. Every change was deliberate, every addition a step further away from the life Victoria had controlled. "I'm open," Emma shouted, waving her arms. Marcus passed her the ball, and she took a shot that bounced off the rim. Noah scrambled to grab the rebound, his small frame no match for his determination. Chloe emerged from the kitchen carrying a pitcher of lemonade, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. Over the past 2 years, she'd become a fixture in their lives. Not in any romantic sense, but as a friend who understood the unique weight they all carried. Someone who could relate to the specific betrayal they'd endured without needing lengthy explanations. "They're good together," Chloe observed, setting the pitcher on the patio table. "Hard to believe there was a time when they didn't know each other existed." "Sometimes I wonder what Victoria thinks about that," Daniel said. "Whether she ever imagined we'd all end up here, raising the kids together in some weird blended family arrangement. I doubt it. Her plan was for you to be dead and me to be raising all 3 kids on life insurance money, completely unaware of what she'd done." Chloe's voice was matter-of-fact now, the raw pain of earlier months tempered by time and therapy. "She didn't account for you being too stubborn to die, or for Dr. Pierce being thorough enough to find that device." Marcus jogged over, slightly winded. "Dad, can we do a cookout tonight? Emma wants to try making s'mores." "Sure, buddy. I'll run to the store and grab supplies." "I'll go with you," Chloe offered. "The kids can keep playing." In the car, driving through familiar streets toward the grocery store, Chloe turned to Daniel with an unexpected question. "Have you thought about what you'll do when she gets out? If she gets out?" Daniel kept his eyes on the road. "She won't be eligible for parole for another 23 years. Marcus will be 35. I'll be in my 60s. It feels too far away to worry about. But if she does get out early, if she somehow convinces a parole board that she's reformed, then she'll have to live with the consequences of her choices. We won't be here waiting for her. We'll have moved on completely." Daniel glanced at Chloe. "Why are you asking?" "She wrote to me again. 3rd letter this month. She wants to know if there's any chance of reconciliation. Says she's a different person now, that prison has changed her." "What did you tell her?" "Nothing. I haven't responded to any of her letters in over a year." Chloe stared out the window. "But I'd be lying if I said I never think about it. Whether people can really change, whether the person I loved was ever real, or if it was all an act. Does it matter anymore?" "I suppose not. But Emma's been asking more questions lately. She's 10 now, old enough to understand more of what happened. She wants to know if her mom is a bad person or a good person who did bad things." Daniel pulled into the grocery store parking lot and turned off the engine. "What did you tell her?" "That people are complicated, that her mom made terrible choices, but that doesn't erase the good moments they had together. That she's allowed to love the mother she remembers while also acknowledging the harm that mother caused." Chloe's voice cracked slightly. "I don't know if that's the right answer, but it's the best I can do." "It's a good answer," Daniel assured her. "Better than pretending it's simple when it's anything but." Inside the store, they split up to gather supplies. Daniel was in the produce section when his phone rang. It was Dr. Pierce. "Daniel, I wanted to call you personally with your latest test results." Daniel's stomach clenched. Every 6 months, he underwent comprehensive testing to monitor the long-term effects of the device Victoria had implanted. Usually the news was stable, not great, but not worse. But something in Pierce's tone suggested this call was different. What did you find? Actually, good news for once. Your kidney function has stabilized significantly. The inflammation markers are the lowest they've been since we removed the device. Your body seems to be healing better than we initially projected.
Relief flooded through Daniel. So I'm okay? You're better than okay. You're thriving. Whatever you've been doing, the lifestyle changes, the stress management, the therapy, it's working. Keep doing it. After the call ended, Daniel stood in the produce aisle holding a bag of potatoes, feeling tears prick his eyes. Thriving.
When was the last time he'd thought of himself that way? For so long, he'd defined himself by what Victoria had done to him. The victim, the betrayed husband, the man who'd nearly been murdered. But maybe it was time to redefine himself by what he'd built in spite of her. At the checkout line, Chloe noticed his expression. Everything okay? Yeah, Daniel said, and meant it. Everything's okay. That evening, as the sun set and the fire pit crackled to life, the five of them sat in a circle roasting marshmallows. Noah had chocolate smeared across his face, and Emma was teaching Marcus the proper technique for achieving the perfect golden brown exterior. The normalcy of it all still sometimes caught Daniel off guard. This makeshift family that should never have existed, brought together by tragedy and choosing to stay together by choice. Dad, Marcus said suddenly, I've been thinking about something. What's that? My birthday's coming up. I'll be 14. Marcus poked at his marshmallow, watching it brown. And I was thinking maybe it's time. Daniel knew immediately what his son meant. Time for what? To see her. Mom. I'm not ready to forgive her or anything, but I think I need to hear her side. To ask her the questions I've been saving up. Marcus looked at his father. Would that be okay with you? Daniel's first instinct was to say no, to protect his son from any further contact with the woman who'd caused them so much pain. But he caught himself. Marcus wasn't a child anymore. He was becoming a young man capable of making his own choices about complex relationships. If that's what you need, then yes. It's okay with me. Emma looked up from her s'more. Are you going to ask her why she did it? Maybe, Marcus said. Or maybe I'll just tell her about my life now. Show her what I've become without her. That sounds brave, Emma said quietly. I don't think I could do it. You might someday, Marcus told his sister. When you're ready, there's no rush. Chloe met Daniel's eyes across the fire, and he saw the same question reflected there that he was asking himself. Were they doing the right thing, allowing these children to maintain any connection to Victoria? Or were they setting them up for more pain? But then he remembered what his therapist had told him months ago. You can't protect them from difficult emotions. You can only give them tools to process those emotions in healthy ways. The visit was scheduled for 2 weeks later at the state prison where Victoria was serving her sentence. Daniel drove Marcus there, the two of them mostly silent during the hour-long drive. When they pulled into the parking lot, Marcus's hands were shaking. You don't have to do this, Daniel reminded him. We can turn around right now. I know, but I need to. Marcus unbuckled his seatbelt. Are you coming in? Do you want me to? Marcus thought about it. Yeah, I think I do. The prison visiting room was exactly as depressing as Daniel had imagined. Gray walls, metal tables bolted to the floor, guards stationed at every exit. They sat at one of the tables and waited. Daniel watched his son's face, seeing the fear and determination warring there. When Victoria was brought in, Daniel barely recognized her. She'd lost weight, her blonde hair was now streaked with gray, and she wore no makeup. The confident, polished doctor he'd married was gone, replaced by someone who looked older and smaller. But her eyes, those were the same. They lit up when she saw Marcus, filled with a desperate hope that made Daniel's chest tighten. Marcus, she breathed, sitting down across from them. Her hands reached across the table instinctively, then stopped when Marcus didn't reach back. You came. Yeah, Marcus said, his voice steadier than Daniel expected. I came. Victoria's eyes shifted to Daniel, and something complicated passed across her face. Thank you for bringing him. Daniel just nodded. He wasn't here for her. He was here for his son. You've gotten so tall, Victoria said to Marcus. You look so grown up. I'm almost 14. I know. I think about your birthday every year, about how old you're getting, what you might be doing, who you're becoming. Victoria's voice cracked. I've missed so much. That was your choice, Marcus said quietly. You could have been there. You could have just divorced Dad and been honest about who you were. But instead, you tried to kill him. Victoria flinched. I know. There's no excuse for what I did. I didn't come here for excuses, Marcus said. I came because I need to understand something. Did you ever really love us? Dad and me? Or were we just convenient covers for the life you actually wanted? Daniel watched Victoria struggle with the question. He'd wondered the same thing countless times, and he found himself leaning forward slightly, waiting for her answer. I loved you, Victoria said finally. Both of you. But not in the way you deserved. I loved you the way a drowning person loves a life raft, desperately, selfishly, without thinking about what that love cost you. She looked at Daniel. You were good to me. You were everything a husband should be, and I repaid that by trying to kill you. Why? The word burst out of Marcus. Why would you do that instead of just leaving? Because I'm a coward. Because I was terrified of being judged, of losing my reputation, of people knowing I'd been lying about who I was for my entire adult life. Victoria's tears were flowing freely now, and because by the time I met Chloe, I'd already built this entire life that depended on your father being my husband. The house, the financial security, the image of having a traditional family. I didn't want to give all that up. So you decided to kill him instead, Marcus said flatly. I told myself it would look like a natural illness, that no one would know, that I could have everything, Chloe and the kids, the house, and the insurance money, the life I wanted without the messy divorce. Victoria looked directly at Marcus. I dehumanized your father in my own mind, made him into an obstacle instead of a person, and that's unforgivable. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Marcus spoke again. I made honor roll last semester. I'm on the basketball team. I have a girlfriend now. Her name is Ashley. I'm learning to play guitar. He listed the facts of his life like reading from a grocery list. Emma and Noah are my best friends. Dad and I are doing great. We renovated the house, got a dog. We're happy. With each sentence, Daniel watched Victoria's face crumble a little more. This was Marcus's revenge, he realized. Not anger or accusations, but showing his mother exactly what she'd given up, proving that they'd built a good life without her. I'm glad, Victoria whispered. I'm so glad you're happy. Are you? Marcus asked. Happy, I mean. Victoria laughed bitterly. No, I'm in prison for the next 2 decades for trying to murder the man I married. I've lost my medical license, my reputation, my freedom. My other children won't speak to me. How could I possibly be happy? Then why did you do it if you knew you'd end up here? Because I didn't think I'd get caught. I thought I was smarter than everyone else, that I could control every variable and get away with it. Victoria leaned forward. Marcus, I need you to understand something. What I did wasn't about you or your father not being enough. It was about me being fundamentally broken in some way, being unable to value other people's lives as much as I valued my own comfort. Are you different now? Marcus asked. Like your letters say? I don't know. I think about what I did every single day. I'm in therapy. I'm trying to understand how I became someone capable of such cruelty. But do I know if I've actually changed? How could I? I'm in here in a controlled environment. I don't know who I'd be if I were free. Daniel spoke for the first time. The medical board wants me to testify at your parole hearing, whenever that ends up being. Victoria looked at him. What will you say? The truth. That you systematically poisoned me for 7 years. That you showed no remorse until you were caught. That you destroyed multiple families for your own convenience. He paused. But I'll also say that you ultimately confessed and saved us all a trial. That you took responsibility. That you're serving your sentence without complaint. Will you recommend they deny my parole? I haven't decided yet. Ask me in 20 years. Victoria nodded slowly. That's fair. Marcus stood up. I should go. I have homework. Marcus, wait. Victoria stood too, her chains rattling. Can I hug you? Just once? Marcus looked at his father, and Daniel gave a small nod. It was his son's choice. Okay, Marcus said quietly. The guard allowed Victoria to step forward, and she wrapped her arms around her son. Daniel watched Marcus stand stiffly at first, then slowly, hesitantly hug her back. When they separated, both were crying. "Thank you for coming," Victoria said. "Thank you for giving me this chance to see who you've become. You're a better person than I ever was." "I know," Marcus said simply. Then he turned and walked toward the exit. In the car on the way home, Marcus was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke. "I don't forgive her." "You don't have to. But I'm glad I went. I needed to see that she's actually facing consequences, that she can't just charm her way out of this one." Marcus looked at his father. "And I needed her to see that we're okay without her, that she didn't destroy us." "She didn't," Daniel agreed. "We're still standing." "Dad, can we not do that again for a while? See her, I mean. However long you need, buddy. This is your timeline." When they got home, their dog, a golden retriever mix named Charlie that they'd adopted 6 months ago, greeted them at the door with enthusiastic tail wags. The house smelled like the lasagna Daniel had prepared that morning in the slow cooker. Marcus's guitar was propped against the couch where he'd been practicing before they left. Everything was exactly as they'd left it. Their life, their home, their peace. That weekend they had another cookout with Chloe and the kids. Marcus told them about the prison visit, and Emma listened with wide eyes. "What was she like?" Emma asked. "Was she scary?" "She was sad," Marcus said, "and older, and kind of broken looking." "Do you think she's sorry?" Noah wanted to know. "Yeah, I think she is, but being sorry doesn't fix what she did." Emma was quiet for a moment. "I don't think I want to see her yet. Maybe when I'm older, like you." "That's okay," Chloe told her daughter. "You get to decide when and if you're ready." As the evening wore on and the kids played in the yard, Chloe pulled Daniel aside. "How was it really, seeing her again?" "Weird. She looks so different from how I remember her, smaller somehow." Daniel watched the children chase Charlie around the yard. "But you know what the strangest part was? I didn't feel anything. No anger, no pain, no lingering love, just nothing. Like she was a stranger who happened to share some history with me." "Is that good or bad?" "I think it's healing. I think it means I finally let go of who I thought she was and accepted the reality of who she actually is." "I'm not there yet," Chloe admitted. "Sometimes I'm still so angry I can barely breathe. Other times I'm just sad about all the wasted years." "You'll get there. Give yourself time." 6 months later, Daniel made a decision. He put the house on the market. Marcus had been the one to suggest it. "Dad, I know we fixed it up and made it different, but it's still the house where she lived, where she lied to us every day. Maybe it's time for a completely fresh start." They found a smaller place across town, a ranch-style home with a big backyard and enough room for Marcus to have friends over. It was closer to Emma and Noah's apartment, which meant the kids could see each other more easily. The move felt symbolic, like shedding the last layer of Victoria's influence. On moving day, as Daniel packed up the final boxes, he found a photo album he'd forgotten about. Pictures from throughout their marriage. Vacations, holidays, ordinary moments. He flipped through the pages, studying Victoria's smile in each shot, looking for signs of the deception he'd missed. But all he saw was a woman playing a role, and suddenly he didn't want to keep looking backward. He closed the album and put it in a box marked for Marcus. Someday his son might want these photos, might need them to piece together his own understanding of his childhood. But Daniel was done trying to decode the past. The future was what mattered now. Marcus graduated middle school with honors that spring. Daniel sat in the auditorium watching his son accept awards for academic achievement and community service, feeling pride swell in his chest. Beside him, Chloe cheered loudly, and Emma and Noah waved homemade signs. This was their family now. Unconventional, complicated, but real. At the graduation party they threw at the new house, Marcus gave a speech thanking everyone who'd supported him. He mentioned his father, his siblings, Chloe, his teachers, his friends. He didn't mention Victoria, and no one expected him to. Later, when most of the guests had left, Marcus found Daniel cleaning up in the kitchen. "Dad, can I tell you something?" "Always." "I'm glad she did what she did." Daniel stopped loading the dishwasher and turned to face his son. "What?" "Not the trying to kill you part, obviously, but the rest of it. The lies coming out, the divorce, everything falling apart." Marcus leaned against the counter. Because if none of that had happened, I wouldn't have Emma and Noah. I wouldn't know Chloe. We'd still be living in that house, trapped in that fake life, and I'd never have known there was something better possible. Marcus, I know it's messed up to say. I know you went through hell and you're still dealing with health problems because of what she did, but I can't help thinking that sometimes the worst things that happen to us lead to the best changes. Marcus looked at his father. We're happier now than we ever were before. Aren't we? Daniel thought about it, about the weight he'd carried for years without realizing it, the sense that something was off in his marriage but not being able to name it, the slow degradation of his health that he'd attributed to stress and aging, the feeling of walking on eggshells around Victoria's moods and demands. Yeah, he said finally, yeah, we're happier. Then maybe what she meant for evil actually turned into something good, not because of her, but in spite of her. Daniel pulled his son into a hug. When did you get so wise? I had a good teacher. The years continued to pass. Marcus went to high school, then college. Emma and Noah grew into teenagers themselves, both bright and resilient despite their complicated start. Chloe went back to school and became a nurse practitioner, finding fulfillment in helping others heal. Daniel's health continued to improve, his body gradually recovering from the damage Victoria had inflicted. And through it all, Victoria remained in prison. She continued to write letters that mostly went unanswered. She attended her parole hearings and was denied each time. She existed in the background of their lives like a ghost, present in the story of how they all came together, but no longer an active force in their present. On Marcus's 18th birthday, he made a decision. He drove to the prison alone this time without telling his father beforehand. Victoria looked even older now, her hair completely gray, her face lined with the weight of her choices. I didn't think you'd come, she said when she sat down across from him. I almost didn't. Marcus sat up straight, every inch the man he'd become. But I realized I needed to tell you something. What's that? I forgive you. Victoria's eyes widened. Marcus, not for you, he interrupted. For me. Because I'm not going to carry your mistakes into my adult life. I'm not going to let what you did define who I become. He leaned forward. I forgive you because forgiveness sets me free. It doesn't excuse what you did. It doesn't mean I trust you or want a relationship with you. It just means I'm done letting you take up space in my head. Tears streamed down Victoria's face. I don't deserve your forgiveness. No, you don't. But I deserve peace. And this is how I get it. When Marcus left the prison that day, he felt lighter than he had in years. He called his father from the parking lot. I went to see Mom. I know, Daniel said calmly. Your GPS tracker showed me. I was worried, but I figured you needed to do it on your own. I told her I forgive her. There was a long pause. Then, how do you feel? Free, Marcus said. Finally free. That night, the whole family gathered at Daniel's house for Marcus's birthday celebration. Emma had baked a cake, Noah had made a card, and Chloe had organized a surprise party with all of Marcus's friends. As Daniel watched his son blow out the candles, surrounded by people who loved him, he felt a sense of completion. They had survived. More than that, they had thrived. The betrayal that should have destroyed them had instead revealed what they were truly capable of. The lies that should have broken them had instead shown them what authentic connection looked like. The woman who'd tried to end Daniel's life had instead, inadvertently, given him a reason to truly start living. Years later, when Marcus had his own family and Emma and Noah had built their own lives, they would still gather regularly. They would still be the family that trauma had forged and choice had cemented. They would tell their own children the story of how they came to be, age-appropriate versions that emphasized resilience over victimhood, hope over bitterness. And Daniel would look at the life he'd built, the relationships he'd forged, the health he'd reclaimed, the peace he'd found, and know that Victoria had failed. She'd tried to eliminate him, to erase his existence to make room for her preferred narrative. But instead, she'd freed him to become someone stronger than he'd ever been before. On quiet evenings, Daniel would sit on his back porch with Charlie at his feet, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and pink. He'd think about the device that had been inside him, slowly poisoning him, and marvel at how far he'd come. The doctors had said he was thriving, and it was true. Not just physically, but in every way that mattered. He'd found genuine friendship with Chloe, who understood his particular brand of betrayal because she'd lived it too. He'd raised a son who was kind and thoughtful and brave, everything Victoria hadn't been. He'd gained 2 more children who felt like his own, even without biological connection. And most importantly, he'd learned that survival wasn't just about staying alive. It was about building something meaningful from the ruins, about choosing connection over bitterness, about letting forgiveness be a gift you gave yourself rather than something you owed anyone else. The house Victoria had used as a stage for her deception was long sold to another family. The medical practice where she'd abused her authority was under new management. The prison where she served her sentence was just another building in another town, housing someone who'd once had power over him but no longer did. Daniel's life was his own now. Fully, completely, undeniably his own. And that, he realized, was the best revenge of all. Not vindictive satisfaction at Victoria's punishment, but the simple act of living well, of being happy, of proving that she hadn't won, hadn't succeeded, hadn't destroyed what she'd set out to destroy. He was alive. His son was thriving. Their family, unconventional and beautiful, was strong. Victoria had tried to write him out of existence, but instead she'd given him the opportunity to write his own story. A story of resilience, of unexpected family, of choosing to build rather than break. And it was a story he was proud to tell. As the sun dipped below the horizon and the first stars began to appear, Daniel felt something he hadn't felt in years. Complete peace. The weight of betrayal had lifted. The fear of what might have been had faded. All that remained was gratitude for what was. He was free. Finally, completely free. And he was home.